Really appreciate your participation at this fourth meeting of the Black Minds. Uh, my name is Brother Shabaka. I'm gonna just give you a couple of preliminary instructions on terms of how we're gonna operate. This meeting is being recorded, and you can have access to the recording. What I will do is put my email address and Baba Amafika's email address. If you request, this will be up for a few days. Once you get the request and activate it, you should be able to download the information or view it. I would suggest that you download it to your own system so that you can view it anytime. We have with us today Brother Ori Ada and Baba Amafika Geuka is going to make the introductions and bring you in. Baba.
Be alert to the fact that this may not work. I was told that if I got a microphone or headphones, I would probably solve the problem that I've had in the past with the audio on my computer. I took the computer in and had it thoroughly checked by the Geek Squad, and they assured me that there was nothing wrong with the computer. So they got me to buy this headset. So, but I'm still gonna be very scarce in terms of what I have to say tonight. But our presenter tonight has been with us before. The previous time he was with us, he was one of 3 presenters. And we decided after that, after reviewing things and hearing feedback from folks, that they were very interested in and somewhat anxious to have him back. And they would prefer that he come back as the sole presenter so that they could get more from him and have more access to him, because he would not be required to share the microphone, as it were, with the other presenters, and we would be respectful of all of the presenters in that way. So he is with us this evening, Brother Heru Ofori Atta, and without further ado, Brother Heru will take, we have suggested to him at least, that he take up to the first hour to make his case or present his case or share his views and opinions with us. And then for the second hour, we open it for questions and comments from our participants, and Brother Shabaka will explain to you what the house rules, as it were, would be with respect to how he wants to deal with that. So brother, before we have Brother Heru start, perhaps Brother Shabaka, you might want to explain whether or not people will be able to talk on the mic or whether you want them to do it in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Baba. I would prefer that you do it in the chat. We have, over 25 people right now, and I expect that number to grow. So it's going to be extremely difficult to try to give you permission to or unmute yourself and then talk. So direct your questions that you have to the chat, and preferably after Brother Heru have finished talking. And then I'll read off the questions to him. He'll see them also. Baba will see them. And we'll make sure that between all of us that we'll try to field as many questions as possible. Thank you.
Brother Heru, you're on.
Yes, can you hear me?
Can hear you fine, Baba.
All right, great. It's a pleasure to be invited to speak to everybody once again. And what I want to do with this session, because what I'm dealing with is the methodology as to how we can empower ourselves in doing our own research and coming up with our own solutions. Because when it comes to the issues of health and wealth, we know that the society that we're in does not give us the proper information to thrive in those categories, right? So as many of our great leaders have said in the past, we literally are on our own. And as far as the American public and the world population has largely been on their own when it comes to what they're referring to as the COVID pandemic. So this will not be me going over news articles and what have you. This is me going over the scientific literature that exists and has existed mainly on the United States National Institute of Health website, and also through some resources through the World Health Organization. Now, people would say, Haru, using resources that we can find on the websites of entities that we consider illegitimate. Well, the point is that many times the truth is laying in front of us. And the people who are in power are so arrogant because they know things about us that we do not yet know about ourselves. They know that they can tell an outright lie through their news media and repeat it 1,000 times, and many of us will not bother to use the library that we have, the global library that we have in our hands, which is in the form of the search engines on our smartphones. And this is what bothers me the most. I mean, besides people dying needlessly, what bothers me the most is how they can get away with just outright lying. I mean, we've seen them do it. When I was a child, they told me that Egypt was not in Africa, right? And all I had to do was actually check and look at the map. But if you're not going to actually look at a map, you're not going to know that. You're going to think Egypt is somewhere out of Africa. And they've relied on that for centuries to give us misinformation, that even if the library is there, they know that many of us will not go there to look at primary source information. So what I'm going to do with this conversation is I'm going to take you through the methods that I used to find out fact from fiction when I first heard about the coronavirus. And I'll walk you through that, and hopefully we can do this together. So I would like this to be somewhat interactive. I don't want to just be talking to you, but I want you to participate. Because what I find is that when people participate in the same activities that I've done to get to the answers that I have, it's a better learning experience than just me talking at you. So the first thing that I did was, I happened to be in Ghana at the time. In 2019, I was working on a construction project and I started hearing some things around a coronavirus in China. And this was in December of 2019. I did not pay much attention to it because I thought it was something like, you know, the swine flu or the bird flu or the what they call foot and mouth disease, or all these kind of fleeting diseases that they would have in the news. And I didn't think it was anything to worry about. And then January came and they were showing that it was spreading in different places and what have you. And I was still engaged in my project, and I was supposed to travel from Ghana back to the States sometime in March. And so they started talking about shutting down airports, whatever. So when that started happening, that type of talk started accelerating. I decided to look into it for myself because it actually was going to affect my life in the sense of not just me watching it on the news. It was going to affect whether I could travel or not, because certain flights were being stopped and what have you. So I decided to just do a little research on coronavirus myself. So what I want to do is I want to be able to share the screen when I need to share it, and then to let people know the type of searches that they can do. So what we need to understand is there are only three, because everyone's focused on the vaccine. The debate is the vaccine. And that's not necessarily my debate. My debate is, how do you get people from being sick to being healthy? Whether they are with COVID or whether they have high blood pressure, whether they have diabetes, whatever, I'm interested in having a sick person in front of me, and what are you going to do to reverse their illness? So a lot of this will not be about the conspiracy theories, and that has a bad, kind of energy to it when you say conspiracy theory, because it sounds like you're just like talking and you're whack or what have you. So I use the word, I like to use the word nefarious collusion. So I won't get into too much nefarious collusion, even though it does exist, but I just want to get into empowering everybody so that if they do have someone sick in their family, they know exactly what to do. And we're going to go through it. So some people are on the fence about the vaccine. Some people are not. Some people are pro-vaccine. Some people are anti-vaccine. Some people are pro-vaccines but anti-COVID vaccine. Some people are anti-vaccines but pro-COVID vaccine because of different reasons. I mean, it's all over the place. And so when we're talking about a vaccine, there are only three questions, right? There's three questions. Number one, is it effective? Number two, is it safe? Which is probably the biggest question. Is it safe? Because if it's effective, if it's not safe, it doesn't matter, right? Like for instance, chemotherapy kills cancer cells, but it also will kill all the good cells in your body too. So, so what's the point of that? Is it effective? Is it safe? And the third question is, are there any viable alternatives, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go through my thinking in when we answer those three questions. And so let me just tell you what happened. So I decided to do, a search on coronaviruses, and it led me to the National Institute of Health website, which let me know that coronaviruses are a family of diseases that are RNA. They're a family of viruses that are RNA viruses. And RNA viruses essentially replicate through the same type of mechanism. What they do is that they use a protein called RNA polymerase to affect their replication. And all of them behave this way. And as a matter of fact, 40% of the common colds that exist are all coronaviruses. So what we're facing now is what they call the COVID-19 virus, which they're saying is a novel coronavirus, but they've given you a clue as to how to deal with it because it's in the same family of coronaviruses and it is an RNA virus. So when you're talking about genetic information, you have RNA, you have DNA. What we're going to do is we're going to look at a video very quickly about the mechanisms of action of COVID and also what stops the replication of the coronaviruses. And this is very important. So anybody, let me just say this to you, anybody who tells you that something won't work for COVID, they have to then explain to you the mechanism of action and why it doesn't work. This is very important. So therefore you can't say, oh, it's an anti-parasitical, so you can't use it against, viruses. Well, you'd have to understand the mechanism of action against a parasite, and you have to understand the mechanism of action against a virus. And many times you have many herbs or many medicines have more than one mechanism of action. And so that's one of the things that's the first thing that we have to understand. There are different mechanisms of actions that different medicines, whether they be herbal or synthetic, might perform. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. Hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine is an analog of chloroquine, and hydroxychloroquine has been used to fight malaria for many decades. It has less side effects than chloroquine itself. And chloroquine is a synthetic of the quinine bark. It comes from the bark of a tree, and it was used to fight malaria. However, there's been resistance that has been developed over the years from using that medication, where the mosquito parasites actually have outsmarted quinine. So then they form chloroquine and they form hydroxychloroquine, which has less side effects. Well, hydroxychloroquine is prescribed for malaria, but in the United States, it's also prescribed for people with rheumatoid arthritis and also people with lupus, because it also has strong anti-inflammatory effects, along with it being an anti-parasitic. So you see, you have something as an anti-parasitic, but it's also anti-inflammatory when you're dealing with autoimmune illnesses like a lupus, which is really based on inflammation. Inflammatory responses where your body is attacking itself. Same thing with rheumatoid arthritis. you're having an inflammatory response in your joints. And I can get into that a lot more, but that's a whole different thing. And I'm trying to be mindful of the time. So I'm just letting you know that there are things that have different mechanisms of action. You might have one thing that has different mechanisms of action. So when we talk about the coronavirus and the replication of the coronavirus, we found out through the studies that exist, and I'll go sharing my screen very soon, that zinc stops the replication of the virus through deactivating RNA polymerase. So RNA polymerase acts as the Xerox machine inside of the cell that will copy the virus when the virus enters the cell. Okay, so the virus will enter the cell. There will be RNA polymerase, which is then activated to copy the virus, and the virus will replicate and replicate and replicate. That's why they're saying that COVID has an incubation period. Sometimes it'll be a week, sometimes it'll be 2 weeks, sometimes it'll be 3 days. And what that is that is from the moment you are infected to the moment that the replication has hit such a level that your immune system can no longer ward it off, and you begin to exhibit symptoms. And those symptoms would be fever-like symptoms, loss of taste and smell. And we're going to get into the mechanism of why you lose your taste and smell as well. And also achy joints, all of those things that they would have as a list of the early onset of COVID. And then what would happen is the first is the infection and the viral replication. The second is the replication reaching a number where you actually get to be having symptoms, right? And then the third stage is where you have a hyper-inflammatory response to the virus, and is located, the hyperinflammatory response is located in the lungs, which leads to a thrombosis in the lungs, or also fibrosis inside of the lungs, but it just leads to basically your oxygen going down, you not being able to breathe, and then you being put on a ventilator and passing away. So those are the 3 stages of COVID. And many of us here have people who we know who have been said to have died of COVID. And the reason why I said to have died of COVID is that there have been a lot of fudging of the numbers. People are dying of different things. And if they tested positive for COVID, then they're being classified as a COVID death, much like they did with HIV, particularly in Africa. If you tested positive for COVID, I mean for HIV in the 1990s, and you had a car accident and you died, they would say that was an HIV related death. And I'm not making this up. This is actually what they did. And so if you die of COVID, if you die of, let's say, COVID, and they write it on the death certificate, you died of COVID, it may not have been that. You could have also have died from the heart attack that you had. You could have died from the cancer that you had. You could have, well, you know, and I actually have a video, if we have time, I could find that, but that gets into more of the other things of, you know, the head of the Department of Health for the state of Illinois. It's actually a Nigerian woman who talked about how they classify COVID deaths, and basically you just had to test positive and die. And it's a COVID death, period. And that's how they did the COVID numbers. And then there's also the issue of the drugs that they're giving people, such as remdesivir, which is causing acute renal failure. So a lot of people dying from COVID, and you see that they've had organ shutdowns. A lot of times it wasn't the COVID, it was actually the drugs that they gave them, the remdesivir, which was actually approved by Dr. Fauci. And Dr. Fauci has a sordid history. He's a failure. Very quickly about him, he's been head of the National Infectious Disease Unit for many, many years, was head of the National Institute of Health. He's actually responsible for tens of thousands of deaths under the AIDS regime, because he is the person who made AZT get put back on the market when it was taken out of the market, when they used it for cancer as a chemotherapy drug, but they found that it was actually too toxic. So they discontinued it. There's a great Spin magazine article on it that was written in the late 80s about Fauci's failure with AZT. And how he kept his job all this time is one of the greatest mysteries in the modern world, because he literally has failed in almost everything that he's done. So that's a little bit of the context. Let's get into the video that I would like to share. Please, can you, Brother Sababu, could you enable me to share my screen?
Yeah, you should have that capability.
Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up and let people watch this. This is a quick course in molecular biology. I'm sure many of you have probably never seen this, but this is just to emphasize to you to please make use of the information that actually exists online, where you can educate yourself on anything, where you'll actually become more competent than these people who call themselves professionals. So that's the whole point of this conversation. It's not here to convince you of something or not. It's just to teach you the tools and to be comfortable with scientific information, and don't act like it's out of your realm or you have to go to medical school to understand these things. This is actually something that you can do on your own. You can study these herbs, you can study these medicines that these doctors are giving you and just look at the side effects. And many times you'll find out that the sicknesses that you're suffering from are actually coming from the side effects from the medications that you're taking. So for instance, high blood medications, ACE inhibitors, such as lisinopril, captopril, they have a study of American Heart Association showing that those medications cause acute renal failure. So people are taking high blood pressure medications and then their kidneys are dying and they don't know why. And it's actually the medications. And I have the studies. It's actually on my website. You can go to herbalresults.net, go to the science page, and you'll see the study under olive leaf extract studies that shows that ACE inhibitors cause acute renal failure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen here. Yes. Okay. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes,
Okay, everyone can see the word zinc, right?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let's listen.
In terms of COVID-19. But to understand this better, we've got to go back and look at the molecular biology of the cell once again. Here is the nucleus of the cell. In the nucleus of the cell is the DNA. The DNA is a double-stranded string of nucleotides, which are the codes. Those codes are transcribed using RNA polymerase into RNA. That RNA then goes out of the nucleus, gets a 5' cap, and gets a 3' poly A tail. And it's
I'm going to pause this real quick. I'm just letting you know the place where I got this is, it's called MedCram, Medical Lectures Explained Clearly. This is on YouTube. Anyone can go here and watch this if you're interested in anything. This is very good. You're basically getting medical school lectures, but it's done in a way where it's very easy to understand. And this was done in March 10th, 2020, at the very beginning of what they're calling the pandemic. And this is where I got my first bits of information from. So I'll just rewind it a few seconds. The beginning, he's going to use a lot of terms. I'll explain everything and I'll make it very simple.
cap and gets a 3' poly A tail. And it's ready for ribosomes to come on to read that code. And that code is then translated.
I'm sorry,
into
that's hard to
the
understand. Let me
code
just come
of
back a little
amino
bit more.
acids.
Let me
It
come
goes
back a little bit
out
more.
of
Sorry.
the nucleus, gets a 5' cap,
Okay.
and gets a 3' poly A tail. And it's ready for ribosomes to come on to read that code. And that code is then translated into the code of amino acids, which amino acid after amino acid will turn into a polypeptide, which turns into a protein. And proteins are how the cell gets things done. So it moves by proteins, actin and myosin. It can bind oxygen through hemoglobin. It can do cellular metabolism. All of those enzymes in glycolysis, in the citric acid cycle, all those that you learned in biochemistry, those are all enzymes, those are all protein. So that's the normal situation. Now enter.
Okay, so what that was just showing you how RNA is transcribed into the cell to make certain proteins like amino acids to perform certain functions like, glycolysis and all these other functions that RNA assists in, but it's just showing you how RNA is actually made inside of the cell. Okay, and then he's now about to tell you what happens with this RNA virus called coronavirus or COVID-19 or the SARS-CoV-2 virus.
Coronavirus. Coronavirus has its own genome. It is made out of RNA. And that RNA just happens to have a 5' head and a poly A tail. So when it pops into the cytosol, it's going to be read by those same ribosomes that can't tell the difference. Except this time, instead of making a protein that's useful to your cell, this RNA that comes out of the virus is going to make something called a RNA-dependent RNA polymerase.
That's
And
very
it's
important
this
right there.
enzyme right here that is going to read from the 3' M to the 5' M of the viral RNA and replicate it. So this RNA-dependent RNA polymerase makes more viral genomes.
Okay, so right there is literally the mechanism of action for the replication of the COVID virus. Okay, that's the mechanism of action. It uses this thing called an RNA polymerase to copy the virus. So when you first, can everyone see, can you see my mouse?
Yes.
Yeah. Good. So this is the virus, you just start getting infected with it. And this is the cell. This is outside of the cell, and now it's going to enter the cell. When it enters the cell, then it produces this thing called an RNA polymerase. The RNA polymerase is responsible then for viral replication. Okay? Is everyone you guys clear on that?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's clear.
It's also known as replicase for that reason. And there's something that has been shown to inhibit this replicase, and that is zinc. Zinc will shut down RNA-dependent RNA polymerase or replicase. And so that is what we learned. The problem is, how do you get zinc inside the cell? The problem with zinc is that it's an ion. It's a 2+ ion. And ions cannot get through the cellular membrane unless there's a transporter that allows it to come in.
So what's happening is that what he's showing is that zinc will stop the Xerox machine from functioning. However, zinc, because of its 2 positive charges, cannot enter the cell. It's almost like a magnet, right? Because of the polarity. So if you have a positive and a positive, they're going to actually repel each other. So you have to get something to change the characteristics of the cell to allow zinc to enter the cell so that polarity is no longer an issue, okay? And these compounds that allow zinc to enter the cell are called zinc ionophores, and he's going to talk about that.
In fact, the way that they tested this in the paper is with an ionophore, which allows the zinc to come into the cell. So they could see that the activity of this RNA-dependent RNA polymerase was reduced. This is the paper. Zinc inhibits coronavirus RNA polymerase activity in vitro. And zinc ionophores block the replication of these viruses in cell culture.
Okay, so in vitro,
the SARS-CoV.
So when they say in vitro, that means that inside of a cell culture, and in vivo means inside of the human being. So these are the laboratory studies that this particular study that I ran across independent of this video. My basic research just put in coronavirus and stopping coronavirus, and this is the first study that came up. Zinc inhibits coronavirus and antiretrovirus RNA polymerase activity in vitro, and zinc ionophores block the replication of the virus, okay? So let's just move forward. I'll rewind it just a little bit, but this is just kind of setting up what you need to know moving forward. And this should have been basic education that everyone received in 2020, at the beginning of 2020, because this study, as you see, is from 2010. So they've known this since 2010, okay?
Of these viruses in cell culture. when they looked at the SARS-CoV virus, that was the one that was seen back in 2002.
That's the first
the
one.
zinc concentration
COVID
inside
one.
the cell went up. You can see that the byproduct of the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase went down, 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 clearly demonstrating that zinc intracellularly is going to block this very important enzyme of the virus.
So what he's saying is that what they saw was that once these zinc ionophores are introduced, the zinc will rush into the cell and literally stop the replication, and it affects the RNA polymerase. It shuts it off, and that's what this study showed. And this is from 2010, from what they're calling SARS-CoV-1, because what we're into now is SARS-CoV-2, right? But because it's all coronaviruses, they all have the same mechanism of action, okay? So that's the first study that I ran into, and then I saw this video, and then I did further research. But
This very
I'm going to play it just a minute or two more so you can hear a little bit more.
important enzyme of the virus. Well, that's great. We've got zinc that's going to block it, but how are we going to get zinc inside the cell? It's one thing to say that you're going to take zinc supplements, but how do those zinc supplements, first of all, get absorbed into your body, into the blood, into the extracellular space? And then finally, how are you going to get that zinc from the extracellular space into the intracellular space in the cytosol, where it needs to work on these infected cells and these viral proteins? Well, that's another thing altogether. What you need is some sort of ionophore or some sort of gated mechanism to open and to allow that zinc to come into the cell, increasing the concentration of zinc into the cell so it can block RDRP. Well, enter this paper that was pointed out by some of you commenting. Chloroquine is a zinc ionophore.
Okay, let me stop this here. So many of you may have doctors who are somewhat conscientious, and what they've done is during this time, they've told people to take zinc, right? But just by watching 2 minutes of this video, you're now seeing that zinc is not enough, which means that many of your doctors were not aware of this. Many of the medical professionals who told you to take zinc because they know that zinc, is good for colds, they did not know the mechanism of action, because most of them do not do further study. They just wait for whatever their hospitals tell them or the FDA, CDC tells them as treatment, instead of actually trying to find out the information on their own and having intellectual curiosity. So if a doctor told you to take zinc without a zinc ionophore, that means that they did not understand that you need a zinc ionophore to get zinc into the cell in order to shut off the RNA polymerase. And as a matter of fact, all you have to do is ask your doctor what an RNA polymerase is, and 99% of them don't even know. This is reality, because I've had public debates with a lot of doctors, and they actually just did not know this information. So what I'm trying to show you is that do not be overly agreeable with somebody just because they have a title. Do not be overly acquiescent to somebody because they have MD behind their name, or they have all of these different titles, because many of them have proven that they don't even know what they're doing. And I mean, I could show you, I could probably do this just for fun right now. We can look at Johns Hopkins. This is just a Google search that I'm doing, Johns Hopkins, and I'm typing in iatrogenics. Okay, all right. So this is a study. This is from Johns Hopkins. Iatrogenics literally means death by doctor. And what they've said in this study here, study suggests medical error is now the third leading cause of death in the United States. It's from Johns Hopkins. And this was from 2016. Okay? So what they're saying is analyzing medical death rate data over an 8-year period. So this wasn't just for 1 year, it's for 8 years. Johns Hopkins patients safety experts have calculated that more than 250,000 deaths per year are due to medical error in the United States. Their figure, published May 3rd in the BMJ, surpasses the US Centers for Disease Control's third leading cause of death, which is respiratory disease. Okay, so that bumped respiratory disease to number 4. And this is before COVID. This was in 2016. So the first leading cause of death is heart disease. The second, they say, is cancer. The third was respiratory diseases, but actually it got supplanted, it got taken over by death by doctor. And then the fourth leading cause of death in 2000, based on this 2016 study, is respiratory disease. So be very careful when you're listening to someone just because they're a doctor. Okay? Just understand that they are responsible for more deaths than respiratory disease and diabetes. That's real. I'm not making this up. Okay? Do your own research. You literally are on your own. Any medication, anything anyone gives you to take, do a search for their side effects. And the way you do that is simply just go on Google and you can put in lisinopril. This is and then you just put in side effects. Many of you who have medications in your so-called medicine cabinet in a bathroom, I mean, it's so prevalent that the little thing, the cabinet in the bathroom is called the medicine cabinet. They know everybody's sick. So yeah, they know everybody's sick. And you know, that's most of the sicknesses are metabolic illnesses. And metabolic illnesses are just from the diet that you have, the foods that you have. That's why when you go to the grocery store, they have pharmacies in almost all the grocery stores now, because they know that the food that they're selling you is going to make you sick and come to them. So they want to make it very convenient for you to go to the pharmacy. That's why a lot of small grocery stores are called convenience stores. It's very convenient. It's very convenient. Go get your white bread, your white sugar, your white flour, all these things that are inflammatory. And by the way, because you're going to need it, we got a pharmacy right here for you. For the diabetes you're about to get, and the high blood pressure you're about to get, and the cancer that you're about to get. And you can come get a prescription, fill your prescription with us, and go get your jelly beans too. Okay? And get your high fructose corn syrup drinks too. So this is what's happening. And so the way you look up side effects is just go ahead and you will go lisinopril side effects. Get the name of the drug, put in the word side effects. And then you can go to drugs.com. and just click it and just look at the side effects that they have listed. They'll tell you side effects, more common: blurred vision, cloudy urine, confusion, decrease in urine, dizziness, fatigue, lightheadedness when getting up, sweating, unusual tiredness or weakness. Less common: abdominal stomach pain, body pains, body aches and pains, chills, common cold, cough, loss of voice, ear congestion, fever, difficulty breathing, nasal congestion, nausea, runny nose, sneezing, sore throat, vomiting. And then they also have all these other things that come along with it. Trouble sleeping, all of that goes along with it. So if all of a sudden you find yourself having trouble sleeping, you go to your doctor and say, I got trouble sleeping. Instead of them looking at the medication that you're taking, they'll just give you sleeping pills. And then, so now you're on high blood pressure medication, you got trouble sleeping, you're taking sleeping pills, and then you have to look at the side effects for the sleeping pills. It goes on and on and on. That's why many of you, when you have your medicine cabinet, it tends to be full. Because a lot of times you're taking medications that are treating the side effects of the first medication that you're taking.
Right.
Okay, so I just digress, but I want to just show you all the tools. Okay, so now let's get into this. Chloroquine is a zinc ionophore. Okay, this is very clear. This is one of the studies that came up on when I started looking at this early 2020. Basically, they're saying that chloroquine allows zinc to rush into the cell and shut off the RNA polymerase. You all know what RNA polymerase is now because I explained it to you in this video, explained it to you. So I'm not using big words anymore because you know what RNA polymerase is, or the replicase. It's what replicates the virus inside of the cell. Now, I could probably stop there, and 99% of you have now gotten more education about this virus than you've gotten in a year and a half. But we're gonna go forward because this is just should be basic education for everybody. 10-year-old child could understand this. So listen to what's being said about chloroquine.
This paper was published back in 2014. And the point of this paper was something completely different. They weren't thinking about coronavirus. They probably didn't even know, perhaps, that zinc blocked RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. What they were looking at here is that zinc may help some of these cancer cells basically eat themselves in the lysosomes, which are sort of the trash compactors of the cell. And that by giving chloroquine, you could have these cancer cells disappear. Well, in doing that research, they found out something that's very interesting to us because of that finding. And this research came out of the University of Oklahoma and some institutions in China. So this is what they used: chloroquine diphosphate. Here's the structure of that compound. This chloroquine is a medication that has been around for decades that is used to treat malaria. It's not under patent and it's pretty dirt cheap and widely available.
That's key.
However, you do need a prescription to use this, and it doesn't come without side effects. What they show is that they were able to detect intracellular zinc by checking its fluorescence. Here on the x-axis, we have increasing concentrations of chloroquine, and the white bars represents those cells that were bathed in only 5 micromolar solution of zinc chloride, and the black was in 10 times that amount at 50 micromolars concentration of zinc chloride. And what you can see here is that in the normal situation, if you're able to get some zinc into the cells, this is the amount of zinc you will see inside the cells. So this is the amount of concentration outside the cell. This is the amount of zinc you see inside the cell. And let's just look at this same concentration, 5 micromolar. When you bathe the cells in chloroquine, you can see how much this intracellular zinc concentration goes up. In fact, if you look at the amount of zinc inside the cell, by just adding a small amount of chloroquine here at 10 micromolar, we would get more zinc inside the cell than if we increase the concentration of zinc outside the cell tenfold. That's how powerfully chloroquine will increase intracellular zinc concentration.
Okay, you all are getting the point now, right? So therefore, if you want to get zinc inside of the cell, you need more than just zinc and just doubling up, tripling up, taking zinc. You can actually make zinc 10 times more efficient inside the cell by just taking a zinc ionophore. Okay? All right. Now, the question came to me, said, okay, what I know is that there are different substances that can do the same thing because now we understand the mechanism of action. So my question was, okay, chloroquine has side effects. Are there any natural zinc ionophores, right? So I just did a Google search for natural zinc ionophores, and what I came up with was this study here. So this study was actually a doctoral thesis. And here's the title: Dietary polyphenols display zinc ionophore activity. So that means that foods you eat that have polyphenols in it display zinc ionophore activity. And so I read this, and what I found on page 70, I believe 75 to 77, was a list of zinc ionophores that are naturally occurring. Hello?
Brother, we can't see. You might have to reshare. Stop sharing, then reshare.
Okay. Yes. Let's see what I can find here. Yeah, what I may have to do. Okay. Hold on a second. I may have to close that out. Okay. Let me do new share. Okay. So for some reason, I'm not able to see that page.
All right, did you stop sharing the video?
Yes, I did.
Be a stop
But
sharing or.
yeah, I stopped sharing that video. But you know what? What I'm going to do, let me see. Okay, here it is. Got it. Share. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, here's the title. Dietary phenols display zinc ionophore activity and modulate zinc signaling. And don't worry about the cells, okay? Hepatocarcinoma cells. Don't worry about that. But we just need to know that there are zinc ionophores. And from it says dietary, that means it's the stuff that you eat, stuff in your food that are zinc ionophores. So I went ahead and I read a little further, and you go to page 70, 75, 76, if I can remember. I'm just doing this off the top of my head, but it has a listing of natural zinc ionophores. So here's a list of some. So they come in the form of flavonoids. So you have one here, this EGCG. It's found in green tea and black tea. So in the extracts, that's easy to find. You have, you have a whole list of them. Quercetin. Some of you have heard me talk about quercetin. It's a very strong zinc ionophore. It's found in onions mainly. Okay? And as a matter of fact, onion extract is just quercetin. That's what it is. You can start scrolling down and you will find, even from coffee, so you see black tea again, gallic acid, and you scroll down more. So all these are just naturally occurring zinc ionophores that they have listed. Okay? Resveratrol, that's coming from cranberry, certain types of grapes. Okay? And I've given people lists, and here's other ones, and here's the list. Okay? Curcumin from turmeric, zinc ionophore, even vanilla extract. Eugenol. Thymol, which is coming from thyme. All European, which is the active ingredient of olive leaf extract, which I manufacture. So I was very happy to see that so that I could at least provide it to people along with zinc. So I made a list for people of all of these different naturally occurring zinc ionophores for people to deal with in terms of stopping viral replication. And remember, I told you that there are 3 stages of the disease. 1, the transmission and the viral replication. 2, early onset symptoms. And then 3, inflammatory response, hyperinflammatory response leading to basically you getting thrombosis in your lungs, or not being able to breathe, or basically dying from some type of lung mishap, which is basic coagulation of the lungs, coagulation of mucus in the lungs, which is an inflammatory response. So at the beginning of this, everyone should have been told, 1, the mechanism of action, 2, the role that zinc plays and the role that zinc ionophores play in the early treatment phase of COVID. So the moment that somebody exhibited symptoms of COVID, loss of taste, fever, all of that, instead of going to the hospital and the hospital telling you, here's Tylenol to take down your fever, which actually I explained to Baba Amafika, that's actually counterproductive, because the way a fever works is, a lot of these pathogens have a temperature in which they completely disintegrate at and break apart at. They become unstable at certain temperatures. And so what the body does, the body knows that through millions of years of learning, because the immune system is actually based on memory. So when we start studying the immune system, strong immune system is the immune system with the best memory. Because what it does is that it remembers the forms and the shapes of the different pathogens and keeps a record of those things, forms antibodies against them to fight them. And so if it doesn't recognize it, that's when you're in trouble. So coronaviruses have been around for some time and the body does recognize it, but if it's a novel coronavirus, it may have some problems. However, they all disintegrate at a certain temperature. And the body tries to turn up the temperature and get rid of these pathogens by giving you a fever. But what happens is that that cannot last for too long because that increased temperature can also affect your organs in a very deleterious way. So it's a balance. But right when you get a fever for COVID or what have you, giving you Tylenol to take down the fever actually, and without stopping viral replication, is making your situation actually worse. And what was happening is that they were giving you this, and they still are, they give you the Tylenol, it doesn't work because it's not a zinc ionophore at the very early stages. Maybe it takes down your fever, but then the virus just replicates. They could have given you something else, zinc and quercetin. As a matter of fact, now let's get into the study that shows that quercetin is a zinc ionophore. And what I'll do is I will leave this page and I will go to this page here, and I'll make sure to share it this time properly. Not that one, not that one. Okay, this one. Let me share it properly. New share. Okay. Look what we got. You guys see that? Zinc ionophore activity of quercetin.
Yes.
And this one, the EPIG. They call that EGCG. And that is from black tea and green tea extract. And they're showing the zinc ionophore activity of quercetin and EGCG. Okay? It just shows you this is zinc ionophore. So you literally can get quercetin from Whole Foods. You can get it off of Amazon. Cost you about maybe $15. You take that along with zinc at your first symptoms. This is what you do because you want to stop the viral replication, because what happens is that there are 3 ways to deal with a viral pandemic that I already talked about many times. And the first way is to have a strong immune system. That's the first way. But they didn't give you the information about your immune system and what strengthens your immune system. There are 2 modalities of strengthening your immune system. One, stop weakening your immune system, right? And the things that weaken your immune system are inflammatory foods, in particular sugar. So the moment, you know, in a viral pandemic, you need to cut out sugar because it's highly inflammatory. We know that sugar is inflammatory. We know that flame is the root word of inflammation. We know that sugar is highly inflammatory, and we know that sugar can burn a hole in your teeth. We call that cavities. So if sugar can burn a hole in your teeth, imagine what it's doing to your soft internal organs. It can burn a hole in your teeth, and that's the hardest part of your body, your teeth and your bones, and sugar is able to do that. Sugar itself can do that. So we know that sugar is highly inflammatory, like a flame. It's burning things. Inflammation, that's what it is. And that is not something that you want during a viral pandemic. But they were giving people the vaccine as a reward for giving people the vaccine. They were giving them ice cream. This shows you that this is a system that knows nothing about actually helping its citizenry. Because they're giving you the vaccine and then they're giving you ice cream. Literally, there's news reports. I said I was going to share news reports, but you can just Google that yourself. Actually, they had lines where they were giving people the vaccine and the reward was to get a bowl of ice cream at the end of it, just so you can increase your inflammation, right? Okay, so the first thing in dealing with your immune system is you have to take care of your immune system and not damage it. What damages it is inflammatory foods, white sugar, white flour. These are all high glycemic index foods that convert into sugar into your body that cause inflammation. White rice, all of these things, right? The second way to build up your immune system is vitamin D. We have studies, I have a whole lot of studies that show that vitamin D plays a role in how you're actually going to be affected by coronavirus. So what I'm going to do here is I will just show you my website, herbalresults.net, where we have a compilation of studies about vitamin D and coronavirus. There are studies done. So are you able to see my website?
Yes.
Okay. You would just go to the science page and you would go to vitamin D science. It's organized, very user-friendly. And when you go to vitamin D science, you will see studies, vitamin D and COVID-19. Vitamin D deficiency as a predictor of poor prognosis in patients with acute respiratory failure due to COVID-19. Here's the study. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
And you will see National Library of Medicine, Center of Biotechnology Information, National Institute of Health. It's there. Okay? Why people, and this is from August 9th, 2020. Why wasn't there not a mass campaign to let people know about vitamin D? I mean, a mass campaign.
Right.
I have many studies that show this. This is just one of them, but I have on my site, you will see 8 different studies. Okay? And they're all basically saying that low vitamin D is associated with dying from coronavirus, essentially. And one of the things that you noticed during the pandemic by the powers that be was they said, stay in your house. Well, the main way you get vitamin D is through the sunshine. So that was their first mistake, was to stay in the house. You're supposed to be out getting the sunshine. And that's why you see the deaths go up during wintertime. As a matter of fact, I'll share this with you. If you look at the CDC reports of deaths every single year, you'll find that the most deaths of all causes, I'm not talking about COVID, I'm talking about all causes, whether it be heart disease, cancer, respiratory, diabetes, the most deaths of all causes happen during the months of December, January, and February. Those are the colds, that's the winter. And they call that flu season. But it's not flu season because they don't give you the right words to educate you. That's low vitamin D season. Because the sun goes down earlier, you get less sunlight, and it's cold in the northern hemisphere, so most people aren't out during blizzards. They're not out when it's cold. So they're not getting the sunshine. And that's when people need vitamin D supplementation. I recommend you get vitamin D with K2. It should be a liquid form. I sell it, other people sell it. Herbal Results sells it, other people, so you don't have to get it from me. If you don't like the way I look, you don't like the way I talk, whatever, you can just get it from somewhere else, but you need to get it. And it should be a liquid form of vitamin D with K2. The reason why you want K2 is that vitamin D supplementation will cause calcium increases in your blood. But sometimes that calcium can deposit itself into your kidneys where you could get kidney stones. So what you want to do is take K2, because what K2 does is it delivers that calcium straight to your bones. So you want to get vitamin D with K2. Okay, and you want to take at least 10,000 IUs per day. And if you start getting any symptoms, you want to up it to 30,000 IUs per day. And I have studies that show that taking 10,000 IUs is just fine, even though they recommend 4,000. 10,000 is fine. I even have studies that show people taking 10,000 IUs for 1 year, and actually within 30 days, the test group that took the vitamin D actually saw a reverse in their aging, their genetic age by 4 years after 30 days of taking 10,000 IUs of vitamin D. But that's a whole different study, and that's a whole different conversation I would have with you. about vitamin D, but vitamin D is crucial to health, particularly respiratory health. Okay? So don't let anyone tell you anything. You need to take your vitamin D. You need to be out in the sun. Get out in the sun, get your vitamin D. And most of us as Black folks, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere, are vitamin D deficient. I actually have a study that I can send you all on a Somali population. So you have Somali immigrants in Sweden who all were healthy before they came to Sweden. But when they came to Sweden, they had the highest amounts of diseases, whether it be high blood pressure, infectious diseases, diabetes, all markers of health. They were rated last compared to everyone else. That's because they were Africans and they were coming from a tropical zone where they had sunshine all the time and getting vitamin D into being locked up in cold places and having like these apartment buildings set up for refugees where they're inside most of the time. It's cold most of the time in Sweden. And those Black populations all had vitamin D deficiency, and they actually died the quickest when it came to COVID. I have studies that show in Indonesia, 98% of the people who died from COVID were vitamin D deficient. So these studies are on my website. You can just go there, look at it, go to herbalresults.net, just to show you proof of concept of what I'm saying, so you can go and read the studies yourself. And I want you all to be very comfortable in reading the studies, and the way that you're gonna go ahead and read these studies. So for instance, this vitamin D study. In all these studies, if you just want to get the quick synopsis, you're just going to read the abstract. Okay, and you can go to vitamin D. I mean, you go to the conclusion section, and you'll see, you can see my cursor right there. Can you see it moving?
Yes, can see it moving.
Okay. All right. So basically, high prevalence of hypovitaminosis. Hypo means downwards. Hyper means upwards. Okay, so when you're hypoglycemic, that means you have low blood sugar. Hyperglycemic means you have high blood sugar. Okay, I just want you all to know that. So low vitamin D was found in COVID-19 patients with acute respiratory failure treated in the ICUs. Now, respiratory ICUs, that's our ICU. Patients with severe vitamin D deficiency had a significantly higher mortality risk. Severe vitamin D deficiency may be a marker of poor prognosis in these patients, suggesting that adjunctive treatment might improve disease outcomes. And I have more and more studies that talk about it, but you know, you can read the abstract and go straight to the conclusions to get to the point of the study. And then particularly when it comes to medicines that are patented, you want to see if the patent holder is behind these diseases, behind these studies of these diseases. We're going to get into that as well. Okay, now, so that's vitamin D for your immune health. Knock out the inflammatory foods, add vitamin D. That's the first way of dealing with a pandemic. Raise your the strength of your immune system. Number two is to stop viral replication. That's how you stop a viral pandemic, is to stop viral replication. And the way you stop the viral replication, I just showed you. You shut off the RNA polymerase with a zinc ionophore. Everyone who's on this understands that now. If I said this to you 2 hours ago, you'd have thought I was speaking a foreign language. But now you understand what an RNA polymerase is. It just copies the virus, and what shuts it off is zinc with a zinc ionophore. And the third way to deal with a viral pandemic is a vaccine. You see, but guess what? The third way is the one that shows you where the money's at. So they only focus on the third way to deal with the pandemic. They never gave you information about your immune system, what not to eat that's going to damage your immune system. Never gave you a lot of information about vitamin D in the sun. They never gave you information about zinc ionophores, natural ones. Whether you want to get the prescription ones that is hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin, which I'm going to get into, they never gave you that information. These are all zinc ionophores. But I gave you the information where you don't need the medical system to get a zinc ionophore. You can get quercetin. You can get olive leaf extract. You can get turmeric. You can get green tea extract. I gave a list of all of these things. Along with zinc, I recommend you get zinc, what they call picolinate or picolinate, because it absorbs better than any other forms of zinc. You see, these are the keys that they should have given people, but they don't want to give you this because they're so thirsty to push their vaccines on people. Now, let's get into what happened. Now that you know that chloroquine was a zinc ionophore, what happened? What happened with chloroquine? Why was it getting such a bad rap? All right, so when they did the studies on hydroxychloroquine, they did a few things. They did studies where they used hydroxychloroquine when somebody was already on a ventilator and they said, oh, it doesn't work. But because you don't know the mechanism of action, it would have made, you don't know that they were using subterfuge to show you that hydroxychloroquine doesn't work. Because they used it at the third stage of COVID when it's to be used at the first and second stage of it. It stops viral replication. Viral replication is not your problem when you're on a ventilator. It's the coagulation in your lungs. But before you get on a ventilator and before you start losing oxygen, when you start the coughing and the loss of taste and all of that, you were supposed to have a zinc ionophore along with zinc. But because you didn't take that and they told you take this Tylenol when you went into the hospital, when you started losing your sense of taste and had a fever, they sent you home and said, good luck. Some people recover because their immune systems were able to go ahead and fight it. But those who don't have good immune systems were not able to fight it. They were left alone, untreated, and all of a sudden now you can't breathe and you got to call 911. Because now you've got coagulation in your lungs from a hyperimmune response, from the lack of early treatment that could be easily treated if you actually knew what to do and were told what to do. Okay? So let's look to see what happened. Why is it that when they first started talking about hydroxychloroquine, all of a sudden now you were told that hydroxychloroquine can kill you and hydroxychloroquine doesn't work? Well, this is what one of the major studies, can you see this where it says the Lancet retracts hydroxychloroquine study?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. The Lancet is a big journal of medicine. This study that the Lancet printed, and I have it, where the Lancet, it says retracted now. This study, do you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the study. This study retracted hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine with or without a macrolide for treatment of COVID-19, a multinational registry analysis. And what they did was they looked at people being treated with hydroxychloroquine in hospitals and they printed their results. Let's just go to what they say at the end. In summary, the multinational observational real-world study of patients with COVID-19 requiring hospitalization found that the use of a regimen containing hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine was associated with no evidence of benefit, but associated with an increase in the risk of ventricular arrhythmias and a greater hazard for in-hospital death with COVID-19. This is where it all started. And now people are making fun of you for trying to take hydroxychloroquine. They're saying, oh, this is Trump's medicine and this and that. So it became political. But it had to be retracted. Why did it have to be retracted? It got retracted because the people who wrote this study provided false data, fraudulent data. They made up the data that people were getting sicker with hydroxychloroquine. They made up the data that it didn't work. So the Lancet had to retract it. And then it got, because remember, there was a time when hydroxychloroquine was actually approved for usage by the FDA and in the CDC. And they all retracted it across the world because of that. They stopped using hydroxychloroquine, clowned it because of a study that was fraudulent. So when they retracted the study, this is what they're saying. The study was withdrawn because the company that provided the data would not provide full access to the information for a third-party peer review, saying to do so would violate client agreements, blah, 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 blah. Really what happened was, according to the editor of the Lancet, was they found that this was fraudulent information that was given. And to further prove that, just last week, the Office of the Attorney General of the state of Nebraska has now circumvented pharmacies who have been told by the CDC and the FDA not to prescribe ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine for the treatment of COVID, that they could no longer block that. Because what would happen was doctors were writing the prescription, doctors who actually looked at the evidence, they write the prescription, and the pharmacies were actually refusing to fill out the prescriptions. So now the Attorney General for Nebraska says you have to fill out the prescriptions, and the doctors can actually prescribe it. So does everyone see this right here? Office of the Attorney General, state of Nebraska?
Yes.
Okay, let me just read a little section from it. Okay, this is the important part here that explains. After receiving your question and conducting our investigation, we have found significant controversy and suspect information about potential COVID-19 treatments. A striking example features one of the world's most prestigious medical journals, The Lancet. In the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, The Lancet published a paper denouncing hydroxychloroquine as dangerous. Yet the reported statistics were so flawed that the journalists and outside researchers immediately began raising concerns. Then, after one of the authors refused to provide the analyzed data, the paper was retracted, but not before many countries stopped using hydroxychloroquine and trials were canceled or interrupted. The Lancet's own editor-in-chief admitted that the paper was a fabrication, a monumental fraud, and a shocking example of research conduct in the middle of a global health emergency. When fraudulent information is published in a leading medical journal, it understandably leads to skepticism in some physicians and members of the public. That is the literature that they use to stop giving people a zinc ionophore in the hospital setting, when you could have given them that as outpatient treatment. Okay? All right. Show this all to people who want to laugh at you about hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin or any of these things, and then ask them what an RNA polymerase is, and ask them what the mechanism of action of the COVID virus is, or hydroxychloroquine or any zinc ionophores are. They don't even know what a zinc ionophore is, and they're laughing at hydroxychloroquine or trying to ridicule you because of this Lancet article that has been retracted. Okay? All right. Now, I'm going to go quickly to ivermectin. Okay, because some doctors are aware of this, and if you're in that type of setting, if you haven't used quercetin, because they're not going to give you anything natural in the hospitals, they give you prescribed medication, pretty much. And this is what's important to know. They say there's no evidence for ivermectin working. Here's a study here that you all can go to. This is a study. Oh no, that's with zinc. Sorry. By the way, let me explain to you very quickly why when you take zinc, why you lose your sense of taste and smell. reason why you use your taste and smell is that one of the things that happens is your body is trying to help you. So your body, once you get infected with a virus, particularly an RNA virus, your body will use up all the zinc that's there to try to stop the replication of the cell. Your body's trying to help you out. So your body depletes you of zinc. So if you don't take zinc supplementation, what happens is that you will then have zinc deficiency. What are the symptoms of zinc deficiency? So all I'm doing is I am Googling zinc deficiency symptoms. Okay. And one, let me just go straight to taste. Okay. All right. Hold on. Let me just go. So one of this is not the one. I think I had it ready. Let me see. Zinc deficiency, one of the symptoms of zinc deficiency is loss of taste. And loss of appetite.
Mhm.
Let me find the one I was looking for. I had it up. Okay. I think this is it here. Okay. All right. Okay. So abnormal taste and/or smell sensation, even reaching the loss of taste. And I had a good breakdown of the symptoms. It was described very well, but loss of taste was one of them. So what's happening is that your body started to become zinc deficient during that time. So you have to supplement with zinc, but one of the symptoms is that you're going to lose your taste. And so basically this is showing you why zinc is so important, but they never told you why you were losing your taste. Okay. And if I find it, I will. It had a very nice explanation, but I have so many tabs up, but you can just put in here. Zinc is partially responsible for developing your sense of smell and taste. Okay. And so sometimes what you would get a metallic taste in your mouth, or you don't taste anything at all. Okay.
Mhm.
When there's a zinc deficiency. But there's more and more information on that. The thing that I wanted to point, it might have been from the Mayo Clinic. I'm not sure. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I just thought that it was something interesting to actually notice. Okay. Now, on ivermectin. Okay. Now, this is something special I would like to give to healers. I did a very deep dive on ivermectin, and I did a long write-up on my Facebook page. I would ask everyone to just go and read that. It's a very deep write-up. But what I have found in that, it deserves actually a whole separate conversation. But in short, ivermectin actually is a naturally occurring bacteria that they found in Japan in the 80s. And they found that this group of bacteria released a compound called avermectins. And they found that it was not only effective at getting rid of parasites and worms, it also showed there was no resistance. There was no development of resistance from any of the parasites. So over time, parasites develop resistance, like how they develop resistance to chloroquine for malaria, but they found that there was no resistance being developed. And they found that it actually had many uses, that not only for parasites, but also for viruses, for cancer as well. And I want to just go through this very quickly, but this is a study, National Institute of Health, and this is what this is the title, Review of the Emerging Evidence Demonstrating the Efficacy of Ivermectin in the Prophylactics and Treatment of COVID-19. And we can just go down to the conclusion, okay? When we go down to the conclusion, what they found was not only is it extremely effective, it's extremely safe. So this is their statement here. Okay, that's a statement on prophylaxis. Okay. They're recommending that it be prescribed to everybody. Okay, in summary, based on the totality of the trials and epidemiological evidence presented in this review, along with the preliminary findings of UNITAID, World Health Organization meta-analysis of treatment randomized controlled trials as RCTs, and the guideline recommendation from an international bird conference, ivermectin should be globally and systematically deployed in the prevention and treatment of COVID-19. That study and what it's about. I also have another study on here that is a meta-analysis of, because they say, oh, there's no evidence, that's what they say, but there are over 60 peer-reviewed studies, 60 studies, 44 peer-reviewed studies, right here on ivermectin, peer-reviewed, 44 of them, that show that it is actually effective for early treatment. Okay?
Brother
Yeah.
Harouk, can I interrupt you for just one moment?
Yes.
Just in case, and I don't know whether anyone may need this, but just in case there is someone participating in the Zoom meeting this evening who does not understand what the word prophylaxis means in the context in which it is used in these sorts of studies, could you explain that, please?
Yeah, prophylaxis just means protection. So it's to stop viral infection, right? Which the vaccines do not do, by the way. But it's showing you that it's very effective for early treatment. So they're looking at the peer-reviewed trials. They saw a 71% improvement in the standard that the FDA and the CDC uses if a treatment is effective, is that there's a 30% improvement. Ivermectin is showing a 71% improvement in these trials. Late treatment, 38% improvement. And that would be past their standard for late treatment after your lungs are coagulated. Prophylactics, 86%. Okay? And so I would urge everyone, I will have all of the links to everything that I'm referring to. You can email me and get that information. Just go to herbalresults.net and go to info@herbalresults. I'll share my list of all my resources, okay? So we know that there are treatments where you can treat yourself early if you were to get this, so that it doesn't go to the last stage. Now, the other form of treatment that I would want people to know about is the mouthwash and the nasal rinse. This is very important. So I have a study that shows that oral rinses, so for instance, okay, so this is a nasal rinse. This is the name of the study. lowering the transmission and spread of human coronavirus. That's the name of the study, the Journal of Medical Virology. And in that study, they looked at people who were infected and they treated them with different washes to see if the viral load would decrease and their symptoms would go away. And what they did was they used nasal rinse and then they used a oral rinses. And here's the nasal rinse table. They use a neti pot. Most of you know what a neti pot is. You put it in your nose, goes out the other side of the nose. When they used the neti pot, they used salt water, saline solution. A lot of people use salt water, saline solutions to do rinses when they have sore throats, but it turns out that there was no change in the viral deactivation or inactivation using a neti pot. And then they actually used 1% baby shampoo, and it actually had 90 to 99% effect, but nobody's gonna put baby shampoo up their nose, right? So let's look at what they did with the oral rinses. This is why I want you all to become familiar with these studies. When they used hydrogen peroxide, and they used it for 1 minute, and that was just doing an oral rinse like gargling, it deactivated the virus between 90 and 99%. Okay, let's look at something else. Listerine. Listerine, look at it, had greater than 99.9% efficacy in getting rid of the virus. Why didn't they tell you this? Why aren't they telling you this? That right when you get sick and you start getting a sore throat, because remember how they test you for, how do they test you for the virus? They put a swab in your nose, they put it in your throat, because they say that's where the virus likes to congregate. So you could actually deactivate that virus in your throat and in your nose using these things. So you could use hydrogen peroxide, you could use Listerine, then they also used betadine, which costs like $5. That also had 99, which is iodine. 99.99% efficacy in getting rid of the virus in the human body, where it likes to localize itself, particularly in the early stages. So if you were able to deactivate in the early stages, then you wouldn't have to deal with so many people getting it traveling to their lungs and having a hyper-inflammatory response. Listerine costs about $5. Hydrogen peroxide costs 99 cents. So what you do is when you go out and you come around people every day, if your children go to school, what I do is I take a swab and I dip it in hydrogen peroxide, a Q-tip swab, I dip it in hydrogen peroxide, then I go in the nose, clear out anything that might be there. Go in the other nostril, clear out anything that might be there. So that's my way of dealing with whatever might have gotten into my nose. And then if my throat, if I start to feel any type of scratchiness, I'm talking about the minute I start to feel anything, this is what I do. I will gargle with hydrogen peroxide or betadine solution or a Listerine. A lot of people are against Listerine. They say it's not good for you. So my thing is that if that's all you can get, then get it. Because you're just going to use it for 5 days. So I'm not one of these people who's like this ideological purist. I'm about results. So when someone gets sick and they're going to get hospitalized, and if what's standing between them is just taking some gargling some Listerine for 5 days, I say gargle your Listerine for 5 days. Because you don't want to be in their hospital. Because
That's
what
right.
they're going to do when they put you in the hospital, they're going to isolate you. You won't have any human contact except with your nurses. They're going to pump you with remdesivir, which is on record for causing acute renal failure, put you on a ventilator, and then you die. And then they'll say that you had organ failure due to COVID, when it was actually the remdesivir. See, when you're in their hospital, you're trapped. So I'm trying to prevent you from being trapped. Okay? And there are ways to get hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin if you need it. You can get quercetin over the counter at Whole Foods. You can get it on Amazon.com. I use the Solgar brand. I use my olive leaf extract, and I use zinc. And I use the Solgar brand to get zinc picolinate, okay? So that's what this study showed. What they say at the end of the study is that people should use these methods. It's as a therapy. And this is before the vaccines came out. So what they're saying basically right here is that it is something that should be used. Okay? That it will lessen the transmission. Okay? While we wait for definitive therapies and vaccines to contain and spread and prevent the spread of SARS-CoV-2, additional strategies are required to lessen transmission. Nasal rinses and mouthwashes, which directly treat the major sites of reception and transmission of COVID, may provide an additional level of protection against the virus. Why weren't you told this? Because it costs a few dollars and you can treat yourself at home. Nobody can make money off of you. Okay? So that's why I spent all this time talking about what you can do to help yourself. Okay? Now we can get into the vaccines. Now, this is, I could probably stop with this next thing that I'm about to show you, because the next two questions, I talked to you about alternatives, right? There are three things in whether you're going to take these COVID vaccines. There's only three questions, right? Does it work as advertised? Is it safe? And are there alternatives? I did the alternatives first because we're pressed for time. I want to teach you what you need to know to help yourself. Then you don't have to get on the phone and call me before you know what to do. That's the point of it, is that I don't want you to have to rely on me to be able to help yourself. So I'm giving you the tools that I've used so that you can just replicate what I know. I'm just not going to be here and be like, I'm the one who knows everything and blah, 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 blah. I'm showing you my methods. So that instead of just giving you the fish, I'm teaching you how to fish. And you can help yourself. All right? So let's go to the issue of vaccine safety. Now, I want everyone to hold on for this one. Vaccine safety. All right, well, first of all, the first thing you need to do is the vaccine that's been approved is the Pfizer vaccine. So we should know something about Pfizer. If they are in charge of saving everyone's lives, we should know something about Pfizer, right? We should know the background of the people who have been recruited or agreed to save our lives. So this is on the National Institute of Health. When you do a Google search for Pfizer crimes, this will come up. So you can do your Google search, Pfizer crimes, and this will come up. Tough on crime, Pfizer, CIHR. CIHR is the Canadian Institute of Health Research. Okay, what happened was that the
Baba Haru, I don't think you are resharing.
oh, yes, okay. Thank you for telling me. Okay, you should be able to see it now. Can you see it?
Not yet. Okay, there it is.
Okay, so let's just get into this sentence here of the abstract. I'm going to highlight it very quickly so you know who Pfizer is. Pfizer, can you see this? Can you see it highlighted?
Yes.
Pfizer has been a habitual offender, persistently engaging in illegal and corrupt marketing practices, bribing physicians, and suppressing adverse trial results. Since 2002, the company and its subsidiaries have assessed $3 billion in criminal convictions, civil penalties, and jury awards. That's who's in charge of giving you your vaccine information, telling you that the vaccines are effective and that the vaccines are safe, right? Okay. So there becomes a question of these vaccines being safe. And are they safe? So we're going to do an exercise. It turns out that there are two ways to see adverse events, which is the reporting of side effects of vaccines. You can look at the US data, and you can look at the World Health Organization's data. And a lot of people say, well, we don't trust them anyway. No, let's just see what they say. So the VAERS data is for United States, and then the World Health Organization is for the world. So what I like to do is use the world information that they are compiling from different countries. That's a better sample size. And what you're going to do is you are going to go to a website. I'm going to have to reshare. I'm going to go to a different page very quickly. It won't be that. Okay. What everyone is going to do with me, because this is the exercise that we need to do. We're going to have some fun. Are you all ready to have some fun?
Yes, let's have some fun.
Let's have some fun. Everybody go to vigiaccess.org. I'm going to see if I can put that in the notes here or the chat. And I will show people easily how you can access ivermectin, okay? I will do that very soon. So I just put vigiaccess.org into the chat for everyone to read, okay? Let me know when you're there, Amafika. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. I will hope everyone else is there. I'm going to give a few seconds for everyone else to be there. Sababu, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. What you're going to do is you're going to scroll down and you're going to hit, I confirm that I have read and understood the above statements. Okay? This is just allows you to search the database. All right, now. We're going to then enter, we're going to find out the adverse events that have happened. Let's just say, for instance, Tylenol. Let's put in Tylenol. This lets you know the adverse events that has happened with Tylenol for many decades. Okay? Do you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. Go down all the way to ADR reports per year. Go down. Okay? You see that they go all the way down to 1968, correct?
Yes.
Scroll all the way up. You'll see 2021. So, and then what this is right here, then you click where it says adverse drug reactions, ADR. Okay, and it lists all the different adverse drug reactions and reports, right? But this number here is what's important because it gives you the total since they've started tracking it since 1968. And the amount of adverse reports of side effects of Tylenol has been 168,730 since 1968. And there's been billions of doses of Tylenol given to people. All right. Let's put in ivermectin. Remember, they're giving you Tylenol at the hospital to go home when you got a fever with your first signs of COVID, right? That's their first treatment of COVID is to give you Tylenol and say, go home and come back to us when you can't breathe anymore. Let's look at the adverse reports for ivermectin. Just remember that 168,000 for Tylenol. Ivermectin, 5,701 have been reported since all the way down 1992. Okay? So that is about 30 years. So in 30 years, there's been 5,701 adverse reports for ivermectin. Tylenol, 168,000. So this is showing you that, well, you can go from 1992 for Tylenol, and you will see that Tylenol has much more than ivermectin. But let's put in COVID-19. Oh, sorry, before we do that, let's put in hydroxychloroquine. And you can feel free to play around with this. Hydroxychloroquine. Okay, so it's had 32,000 adverse reports since they started tracking it since 1968. So it has much less adverse reports since the 60s than Tylenol. So even according to the World Health Organization statistics, hydroxychloroquine is actually safer than Tylenol. But they told you that it's not. And it's going to hurt you. Okay. Let's put in COVID-19 vaccines. Take out the S, just put in vaccine. Oh, sorry, COVID-19. It has to be hyphen. COVID-19 vaccine. Okay. Can someone tell me what this number is?
2,323,143.
Adverse reports. Since when? Since they started looking at these mRNA vaccines, 2014?
2014.
Right, but let's look at 2021. What's the number of 2021?
2,320,758.
2021 starts in January, am I correct? Baba Amafika, am I correct? 2021?
Yes, it starts in January.
January. And what
Last
month are we
time I
in?
knew,
Yeah, what month are we in?
we are in October.
Over.
10 months. In 10 months, there have been 2.3 million adverse reports, according to the World Health Organization, of the COVID-19 vaccine. Ivermectin has 5,700 since 1992. And they're telling you that ivermectin is dangerous for you and it's horse medicine when it's not. It's used for animals, but it's also used for human beings. That's like calling penicillin horse medicine, because penicillin is used as an antibiotic for horses and cows, but it's also used for human beings. And so that'd be like them telling you, if you were taking penicillin, that you were taking a horse antibiotic. They're trying to scare you from taking something that is out of patent. Ivermectin, patents last for 20 years. Ivermectin started in 1987 for human beings, 1981 for animals. So it had a 20-year patent, which means it expired in 2007. So the patents go on for drugs for 20 years, people. That means that only one company can exploit and make money from this particular compound that they have made in a laboratory. Ivermectin is a pseudo-synthetic because a lot of it is actually the natural compound of avermectin, which Merck changed a little bit to ivermectin, but it's fallen out of patent, which means they can make for pennies on the dollar. So they do not want you to use it. But they want you to use a vaccine. They don't want you to use something that is effective, that has 5,700 adverse reports in 30 years, according to World Health Organization. But they want you to use something that has 2.3 million adverse reports in 10 months. Now, let's even look at other vaccines. Let's put in the measles or polio vaccine. Polio vaccine. Okay, the polio vaccine, since 1968, has 121,689 adverse reports since 1968. And the COVID vaccines got 2.3 million in 10 months. Let's look at another vaccine, the MMR vaccine, which they use for measles. MMR vaccine. Let's just put in MMR. Yes, they use it for measles, mumps, rubella. 160,000 since 1975. What I'm showing you all is that even amongst vaccines, these are the most dangerous vaccines that have ever been recorded in human history. I'm not saying this hyperbole. You can check the numbers yourself. I'm not making this up. I'm using their own resources. So they got you using something that in 10 months got 2 point, let's put it back so you all can look at it. COVID-19 vaccines. Sorry, I just have to take out the S, put in vaccine. Okay, so I want you to see this. So when everyone tells you that these vaccines are safe, refer them to this website and you'll see that it's properly labeled World Health Organization, Collaborating Center for International Drug Monitoring. This is their website. And they're telling you, and remember, not all adverse reports are actually reported. And some studies show you that less than 10% are reported. So can you imagine what the real number is? 2.3 million worldwide in 10 months. But they're going to tell you it's safe. So now let's look at the studies they judged these vaccines on. So, okay, this study here, the safety and efficacy of the BNT162b2 mRNA. That's the Pfizer vaccine, y'all. Okay, so at the end of it, and this was in December 2020. This is when they're getting ready to roll out the vaccines and telling you it's all good. That's December 2020. And this is the study in the New England Journal of Medicine that they use to say that this thing is effective and it's safe. So if you go down, you know, it'll tell you the efficacy, blah, 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 safety, and all of that. You can read it if you want to read it. And then let's just go down to the end and what they're saying. They're saying basically that it works. It's all good. Okay. They tell you it has a favorable safety profile, blah, blah, blah. But we've seen that it actually has the worst safety profile of any medicines that have actually ever been invented. They're saying it's all good. And let me see if I can, okay. Okay, in the context, let me just highlight that. Can you all see this study?
Yes.
My highlight? Okay. In the context of the current still expanding pandemic, the Pfizer vaccine, if approved, can contribute together with other public health measures to reducing the devastating loss of health, life, economic, social well-being that has resulted from the global spread of COVID-19. They said it's safe and they said it's effective. Interesting. Let's scroll down a little further. Supported by BioNTech and Pfizer. This is Pfizer's own study. Let's look at the contributors and who they think. We think all participants who volunteered for this study and members of blah, 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 blah. Okay, we also acknowledge the contributions for editorial support funded by Pfizer and the following Pfizer staff. look at how many Pfizer staff people were behind this report. You can't make this up.
Uh,
You can't make this up.
hmm.
And BioNTech is the company that works along with Pfizer. They have a partnership to roll out the vaccine. So it's the BioNTech, and they're the ones who, look at them. So you got Pfizer and BioNTech telling you that it's safe and effective. Isn't there a conflict of interest there?
That's a conflict of interest.
And isn't it even worse knowing that Pfizer basically is a criminal organization based on its own studies, that they have falsified data, they've not marketed their products correctly, and they've actually suppressed adverse events? This is the study that they use in the New England Journal of Medicine, that they go on TV and say that you should get this. Study by the company that actually makes it. Okay. There is another one here where they talk about the safety after 6 months. You see it? Safety and efficacy after 6 months. New England Journal of Medicine. Let's go down to who they think. Supported by BioNTech and Pfizer. So they did it in December, and then they did a review 6 months later, and they're saying, it's all good. They're saying the data in this report show that the vaccine prevents COVID-19 effectively for up to 6 months after the second dose across diverse populations, despite the emergence of the variants, including the beta variants, and the vaccine continues to show a favorable safety profile. Supported by BioNTech, Pfizer. And they go through the list of employees that they're thanking. And they do this because they know that you're not going to look.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They know that you're not going to go to the World Health Organization site and find out that there's actually 2.3 million reported adverse events in 10 months, which is unheard of. Okay? There's so much more that I could do here to show exactly how much they've lied and how unreliable that this is. I have a whole section on the vaccine efficacy, showing that it wanes after 4 months to about a 30% efficacy. They haven't told you that. They told you that it was actually going to be safe. I'll share this with you. This will be interesting. Okay, let me find this. This is a nice little video. And I know people have questions, so I want to get to the questions, but I want to kind of show people what's going on. Do I have it? Do I have it? Do I have it? Do I have it? There is something I wanted you all to see. Sorry, I just had a lot of windows open. But you all are getting a picture of exactly, okay, yeah, here, we're going to watch this. Okay. Oh, I need to change my screen again.
Apparently so, because it wasn't moving.
Okay, here we go. Do you see this?
I see Fauci.
Okay,
Yep.
let's watch this. They're talking about the vaccine and its efficacy. And at first they said it's 100%. Then over time, they're showing you that it's actually not that effective. The efficacy has gone down. They've backtracked on what they said. At first, they told you it would stop transmission. It doesn't. They told you that it was 100% effective. Anytime someone tells you anything is 100% effective, they're lying. Nothing works 100% of the time for 100% of the people, nothing. I mean, there's some people who are thirsty and water is not even an antidote. They'll still be thirsty after they drink water. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not, nothing is 100% effective for 100% of the people. But let's listen and let's watch this.
So now we have two vaccines that are really quite effective. The mRNA vaccine, highly effective, extraordinarily efficacious, 94 to 95% for mild to moderate disease and virtually 100% efficacious, because the real world effectiveness is even more impressive than the results of the clinical trial.
See where it says 100% effective? This is all your media, by the way. 100%, 99%, 98%, 97%, 96%, 94%, 91%, 89%, 88%, 87%. %, 72%, 71, 70, 68%, 67, 58%, 56%, 53%, 51%, 47%, 42%.
You might need a shot. You've got to make sure you clarify that with people. Nothing to do with whether or not it's effective. We know it's highly effective. Highly effective.
Okay. It just shows you a run-up of the news articles and how they basically have changed their tune when it comes to the effectiveness of their vaccines. Now, here's a study. Can everyone see this? Increases in COVID-19 are unrelated to levels of vaccination across 68 countries. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. What this study is showing is that there are countries with high vaccination rates and they're experiencing increases in COVID. They're trying to figure out why. So they looked at it, and essentially they're finding out these vaccines are not what they reported to be. Okay? So here, for instance, a report released from the Ministry of Health in Israel, the effectiveness of 2 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine against preventing COVID-19 infection was 39%, substantially lower than the trial efficacy of 96%. So in the trial, they told you it was 96%. Well, Fauci told you it was 100%. The trial told you 96%, and what they're seeing in Israel is actually 39%. Okay? That's what the studies are saying. There's another study. Okay, the impact, I'm not gonna get into that. We're running out of time. Okay, this is a very important study. This was a study done in Minnesota. And this is what the study is called: Comparison of 2 highly effective mRNA vaccines for COVID-19 during periods of alpha and delta variant prevalence. Now, what's most important is this chart. Just want to get you all comfortable and not intimidated by looking at the scientific studies. This chart right here. Everyone can see this chart?
Yes.
Okay. All right. The orange is the Moderna vaccine and the blue is the Pfizer vaccine. So this is in Minnesota. What they found is the effectiveness in Minnesota against the infection from February. This is what they were seeing. You see the downward slope as time goes, where the one that's been approved is the BNT one, which is the Pfizer. And after 5 months, Well, actually, by month 4. So February is the 2nd month, June is the 6th month. So in 4 months, you start to see a precipitous decline in Pfizer vaccine efficacy. See that? Where it actually goes down to below 50%. Now, in terms of associated hospitalization, you start to see this, the same downward slope. So it starts to go down. After time, it goes down and down. But what they're not also telling you is that the more you're taking these things, the more because they're saying now take a second shot and get a booster shot. Well, you're exposing yourself to adverse events every time you're taking this. Now, that's what they're not telling you. And there are now some resources I want to give you in terms of doctors that you need to follow. Now, what is very, very important, and I'm going to give you all a cheat code. If you want to know what's happening in the world, like really what's happening, what you need to do is follow certain people who have proven themselves over time in their respective fields, not the people that they give you on the press, but people that have proven themselves over time in their respective fields. And all of them have Twitter accounts. It sounds funny, but for instance, I'm always up on what's happening with Tesla, and I have a beat on everyone when it comes to Tesla stock because I follow Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, and he makes posts on Tesla directly from him, not news articles. So I find out what's happening with the company before anybody else does in mainstream media, whether you listen to CNBC, which is worthless, or Wall Street Journal, which is worthless. You can follow the CEOs of the company themselves, but then you can also follow leading doctors and leading virologists who aren't allowed on CNN. So I'm going to give you some names of some people that you should follow, because the question becomes, well, how did you get this information? A lot of the studies so who I want you to take note of is
Yeah, I have those.
these doctors here.
Yeah.
Dr. Jessica Rose. She does analysis of vaccine safety and has testified in front of the FDA. And she basically says that they are hiding the adverse reports in the VAERS system in the United States, and she breaks down why. And she tells you basically that particularly young men are at severe risk for myocarditis, which is inflammation of the heart.
She's out of Canada, isn't she?
Yes,
Okay.
Dr. Jessica Rose out of Canada. That's someone you need to follow. Dr. Peter McCullough, you need to follow him. He's going to deal with a lot of vaccine safety issues, and also what could happen with leaky viruses in terms of, leaky vaccines, where they're not completely stopping transmission and what they're able to do in terms of the mutation, causing mutations of the virus. Dr. Peter McCullough, he has a Twitter. Dr. Pierre Corey. Dr. Pierre Corey is one of the leading lung specialists that work in the ICU, emergency care, and also intensive care for lungs. He's a professor and a practicing physician. And Dr. Pierre Corey is someone you need to follow as well. He is the one who champions ivermectin for treatment because he's seen that it has helped over 99% of his patients. This is someone who's on the front lines, and please remember that Dr. Fauci does not see patients. He's a doctor who doesn't see patients. This Pierre Corey sees patients every day, and he sees what ivermectin has done as something that has reversed people who are in terrible shape, and even people who are called long haulers who have symptoms of COVID a year later. They still have problems breathing and all, but then when they take ivermectin, that goes away. Dr. Pierre Corey. Dr. John Campbell is someone you also need to follow. And a lot of these people have lectures on YouTube that you can just watch, and you can watch it with your children so they can get an understanding. They speak in very plain ways. And then also Dr. Geert Vanden Bosch. very important person. He's a virologist, and he talks about the mutations that could happen. And he has a website you can go to that answers a lot of questions. He's somebody that you definitely need to follow. He basically has made a lot of predictions about the vaccine not being effective early. He made a lot of predictions about it not stopping transmission early. He's been completely right. And he also talks about the mutations that could happen with the viruses and these variants and how the vaccine will not be effective against the variants. They spell it all out. And that will allow you, instead of waiting for someone to give you a presentation to give you the information, you can search for it yourself. But these are people whose credentials are impeccable. They all have PhDs or MDs. They are professors. They are listed as some of the top research and practicing people in the medical field. And they are dissenting voices from what's happening in the general media that you need to keep in touch with. You need to follow them on Twitter. If you don't have a Twitter account, just put one up. It's very valuable. You get news before anyone else gets news. If you're following the right people, you can follow nuclear physicists. I follow, I'm into nuclear physics. I'm into astrophysics as well. So I follow astrophysics. I follow people who are into organic chemistry. I follow all types of people who are into engineering. And I learn from them every day because it's like they're spilling their thoughts online, and you can actually read what these people are saying directly from them instead of going to these CNN and all of these people who are handpicked to basically tell you a certain narrative. So I have many more studies to prove the point that the vaccines are not as effective as marketed in true Pfizer form, because remember, are you able to see this, the tough on crime?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Always remember that Pfizer has been guilty of three things: corrupt marketing practices, which means that they're telling you that their drug can do something that they can't. That would go under efficacy. They're guilty of bribing doctors. So you don't know these doctors who are on CNN who are promoting these vaccines. You don't know if they've been bribed by Pfizer. And they're guilty of suppressing adverse trial results. That's why you don't hear anything about people getting adverse reactions. And before I looked at the data that's on the World Health Organization, I happen to be part of Facebook groups that have people from all over the world who report. Facebook groups, let me see if I can find it. And what I will do is I know I sent it to someone very recently, but I had a list of Facebook groups that I'm part of where people from all over the world report what has happened to them with the vaccines. And if you read the posts of what's happened to people, I'm talking about people getting brain aneurysms, people getting blood clots in their brains, people having heart attacks, women having menstrual cycles that don't stop, bleeding for 3 months straight. The adverse events that are coming are completely unreported. People don't know anything about. And what I'm going to do is take it off the sharing now. Let me stop sharing. Right, and then we can go back to the main. Right. And what I will do is I will add a link to the Facebook groups that I follow. And from there, you will be able to actually go to these groups and see they're all vaccine side effects groups. So you'll be able to read for yourself what people are saying about these vaccines, and don't rely on anything that the press is telling you, because they are bought and paid for, and you know that. I don't have to give anybody, yes, here it is. I'm about to put it on the chat right now. I want everybody, just take some time. Take some time and read what people are reporting, and your heart will be broken. All right, there it is right there. Right there, I just put it there. These are the Facebook groups. Check them all out. Yes, and remember, every single thing that I have posted and every single thing I've talked about,
I don't
there are
think-
studies from the US National Institute of Health. They're aware of zinc ionophores. They're aware of what could possibly happen in terms of getting rid of this whole pandemic with early treatment. They're also aware that there are 2.2 million adverse reports on these vaccines on the World Health Organization site, but this is not in the news. And for many of you, ask yourself why this is the first time that many of you are hearing some of this information. It means that your educational system, your public health system that's supposed to educate you about saving your life in a pandemic has completely failed you. And they will continue to fail you. And you won't know that they're failing you because they know something about you that you don't know. They know that you will get information from them on CNN or wherever. This is the majority of people. I'm not talking about the people on here, because by the fact that you're here listening to this means that you don't believe what they're saying in the first place, or that you're on the fence. That's why you're here. But the majority of people get information and they just repeat it, and they'll just say ivermectin is a horse dewormer. Now, for the healers out there,
Brother,
yeah,
are you showing us? Because all I see is you.
yeah, I'm not gonna, you know what? I'm not gonna show anything
Okay.
more because it is past 10 o'clock. It's 2 hours.
Okay.
I could go in depth on each of the three, you know, the alternatives, the dangers of the vaccine, and also the efficacy or lack thereof of the vaccine, which at least 10 different studies for each one of my points. But I think that you all would agree that I've shown you some of the important things to let you know that, is the vaccine as effective as they say? No. Is it safe as they say?
No.
Is it the only way to address the coronavirus pandemic?
Absolutely not.
So that was the point of what I'm doing here. And what I want to do is, I do want to take some questions for people who want to talk about what I spoke about. But I do, for those who want to stay, I do have a special 5-minute section for those of us who are healers. It's a very important message. It's some very important studies I want you to look at. And really it centers around anti-parasitics. What we're finding out is when we start studying these anti-parasitics more, whether they be herbal anti-parasitics such as olive leaf extract, such as neem, which is a anti-parasitic, whether it be pharmaceuticals such as hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin, what we're finding out is that they have many more mechanisms of action than what people actually know about generally. People are thinking that these are anti-parasitics only. But when you start looking at the mechanisms of action, so for instance, one of the mechanisms of actions that I told you about for COVID is zinc ionophores, right? As a mechanism of action. I have a study that shows the mechanism of ivermectin against COVID, ivermectin having 20 different mechanisms of action. So
Let me
as a zinc
ask you.
ionophore is just one mechanism of action.
Let me ask you to hold up
Yes.
a minute, Brother Heru, because I feel a little bit that I've misled folk, because I did indicate that at a certain point we would allow for people to submit questions through the chat. And since we're past in fact, we're past 10:15 now, let me ask you, Brother Heru, and you, Brother Shabaka, how much additional time can we extend this so that we can allow at least some people to get in some questions?
We can
Well,
go up a bit longer. Depends on-
Let's set a time so that we can say it.
well, it's up to everyone listening here. For me, I got till the break of dawn. Because the reason why I have all night is that there's nothing more important for me to do right now.
Okay, well, let's ask folk how much more additional time they would request then for questions. Brother Shabaka?
Yeah, well, we can do that. They can put it in there, but right now we can start the questions right now. If he was saying until dawn.
I'm just saying that.
I
Listen,
think what he's saying is what he's willing to do in terms of his availability. Well, you're the one who can tell us how much time we actually have left that we can use, because you control that.
We have at least a good 30 minutes left.
So let's say 30 minutes.
Okay.
I just like to be definitive about things as much as possible, especially when you're dealing with Black folk.
yeah, no problem. So 30 minutes, people can ask whatever they want to ask, and then I will close 5 minutes as my special message to healers.
So let's do this then. Let's take 25 of those minutes, and then the final 5 minutes of the 30, let's give that back to Brother Heru so that he can do his sharing with the healers. Fair enough? I hear no opposition, so I'm going to take that as an agreement. Then Brother Shabaka, you had said that people would be submitting questions or comments into the chat, I believe. So why don't you take them from there? And let's use up 25 of the 30 minutes, and then we'll give the final 30 minutes to Brother Heru for the healers.
All right, this question came early, but I'm gonna, it's still relevant, and that was question to you, Brother Heru. It says, and this is when you were speaking about different ACE inhibitors and stuff like that. Apparently, Brother Mansoon, who raised the question, have high blood pressure, and he was wondering whether, now I'm gonna have difficulty pronouncing this name, hydrochloride or allodopan were good if they cause renal failures also, because he had, I guess that's the kind of medication he's taking. To your knowledge, you know the efficacy of these drugs?
Yeah, so this is what I'm going to do. So let me just, what I will do is I will share the screen very quickly with people, because many of our people have high blood pressure. So this is a good question. And not only that, high blood pressure is a comorbidity for COVID, so that if you have it, there's a greater chance that you might die of COVID. So let me just show you this study that many of your doctors do not know about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen, and let's share screen again. Okay. All right. Can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Here's how you find, this is the website herbalresults.net, and you will go to science and you go to olive leaf extract science. When you click that, you're going to scroll down and you'll see a heading that says high blood. The way I did is I organized this because I manufacture olive leaf extract. I want people to know the science behind it. So I showed people how it works for high blood pressure and the studies associated with it. As you see, I'm big on these studies. So then how it works against diabetes, how it works against bacteria, viruses, fungal infections, how it works against cancer tumors. I have a study that shows that it kills cancer tumors between 9 and 12 days. That's a whole different lecture. And then pain, Parkinson's, autoimmune illnesses, and so on and so forth. So I have a study here, this study here. And let's see it. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Renal considerations in angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor therapy. Okay. So let's just read a little bit of what they're saying. And this is from, who's this from? This is from the American Heart Association. Okay, the AHA. This is from their journal. And this is a study that was done, published in, as you can see, 2001, October 16th. So this is a 20-year-old study, people. And they've known this for 20 years. And here it goes. Let's okay. Let's read it from here. Angiotensin converting enzyme ACE inhibitors are now one of the most frequently used classes of antihypertensive drugs. Beyond their utility in the management of hypertension, their use has been extended to the long-term management of patients with congestive heart failure, CHF, as well as diabetic and non-diabetic nephropathies, which is kidney problems, okay? Now, let's go down a little bit and see what it says. Renal function, do you all see this?
Yes.
Renal function can deteriorate acutely. Let me just highlight that for people. Renal function can deteriorate acutely when ACE inhibitor therapy is initiated, or in patients receiving chronic ACE inhibitor therapy, particularly in patients with CHF, which is congestive heart failure. ARF, acute renal failure, can occur even if ACE inhibitor therapy has been uneventful for months or years. To date, little has been written about this latter problem. So they're saying that kidney failure can occur once you're taking these ACE inhibitor drugs, even if it's been uneventful for you taking it months or years. It can just happen suddenly. Why didn't your doctors tell you this when they prescribe you ACE inhibitors? Now, how can you identify an ACE inhibitor? ACE inhibitors typically end with the word, with the pril, at the suffix pril, lisinopril, captopril. All of those are prils. Those are ACE inhibitors. That's how you know you have an ACE inhibitor. So if you have something in your medicine cabinet right now that ends with pril or ill, it's an ACE inhibitor and it's going to cause you acute renal failure. And lisinopril is one of the more popular drugs that are prescribed for high blood pressure. But your doctor's not telling you that it's going to put you on dialysis. And if you go to a dialysis clinic, 20 people on dialysis machines, 19 of them are on high blood pressure medication. They've never made a connection between a high blood pressure medication causing kidney failure. And as a matter of fact, I have many people that I've worked with who are customers who have had kidney failure, and I've told them and showed them the study, and they've replaced the high blood pressure medication with something natural, such as olive leaf extract, and they've watched their kidney functions increase. These are people who could not urinate, because when your kidneys die, you can't urinate. That's why you have to go on dialysis. The dialysis machine, what it does is it cleans your blood from all of the impurities that your kidneys would have taken out through your urine. But because you cannot urinate, because your kidneys are effectively dead and you cannot urinate, you need a machine to clean out your blood. That is the dialysis machine. So they don't explain these things to you. But what happens is that the more you're on the dialysis machine, the weaker your kidneys get, because your kidneys are a muscle, and your kidneys develop atrophy with lack of use by having the machine substitute for itself.
Goodness gracious.
But your doctor never told you that your medication that you're using is causing you to have kidney failure in the first place. So I've had people who couldn't urinate for 5 years. I give them the olive leaf extract. They take that. Their blood pressure is normalized. They discontinue their high blood pressure medication. And within 4 or 5 days, they're able to urinate. This was my uncle's case. I have an uncle, this happened to him. Now, I'll show you another thing. There's another study that shows, can you see here?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a study. Olive leaf extract, effective in patients with stage 1 hypertension, comparison with captopril. Captopril is an ACE inhibitor. And from this study, they said basically that there was a reduction in the, check this out, right here. A significant reduction in triglyceride levels, that's your cholesterol levels, was observed in the olive group, the ones taking olive extract, but not in the captopril group. In conclusion, olive leaf extract at the dosage regimen of 500 milligrams twice daily was similarly effective in lowering systolic and diastolic blood pressures in subjects with stage 1 hypertension as captopril, given at its effective dose of 12.5 to 25 twice daily. So what they're telling you is that it worked just as well as this ACE inhibitor called captopril, and it worked even better for your cholesterol levels, but it doesn't cause acute renal failure. So why the hell are they prescribing you this and not telling you to take olive leaf extract?
Right.
Because there's no money in it for the medical system, because you can't patent something that was already made by nature. You understand what I'm saying? So
Understood.
I went the long way because I like to show people the tools to use to actually understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. That I'm just not making any of this up. What we're seeing is that there are cheaper and effective ways to treat a problem, but because the doctors are locked into prescribing you medication, many times medication that is in patent, so that the drug companies can make the most money, that's what they give you, as opposed to giving you something like olive leaf extract or garlic or anything else natural that may lower your blood pressure. There's no money in it. And for the women listening, it even gets more vicious when we start talking about gynecological issues such as PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, endometriosis, fibroids, all of that. You go to your doctor, your gynecologist, and they'll tell you you're going to either get a myomectomy or you're going to get a hysterectomy, which is going to render you sterile. The hysterectomy pays a lot of money through the insurance companies. That doctor got student loans to pay. So they'd rather give you the surgery than tell you, hey, you got endometriosis. Hey, you got fibroids. You can go and take this. Let me just show you, because I want you all to see this. On Amazon.com, you can go and get this Vitex. This right here. Look at the cost, $16.47. What Vitex does, it's also called chasteberry. What we found out is that women with these gynecological issues, from breast cancer to fibroids to infertility to endometriosis to PCOS to uterine cysts, all of these things are largely responsible to women having excess estrogen in their blood, in their bodies. So they're estrogen dominant. And what happens is that there is another hormone called progesterone that balances off estrogen. But many women have too much estrogen and not enough progesterone. Well, guess what? Chasteberry, you all can see this right here?
Yes.
Jaya herbs, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, chasteberry allows the body to make progesterone naturally. It reverses endometriosis, infertility, PCOS, all those things. So instead of putting you through surgery, if your doctor actually read anything and read any studies, they would just give you Vitex first. But it's $16. And I'm telling you this because this happened to my sister. My sister had endometriosis and she kept it from me. She never told me she had it until one day she told me she had it, and she'd been going through it. And she was getting pain so much that, like, it was almost like it was so much pain that, like, a lot of women are thinking about suicide during that time. That's how painful it is. Because what happens with endometriosis is that literally pieces of your uterine lining are just coming off, like ripping off of your body in clumps. because they're estrogen dominant. And she was put on Depo-Provera, which renders you sterile. She went to the top gynecologist in Miami, gave her Depo-Provera, told her she needs to have a hysterectomy. She said, I don't want a hysterectomy because I would like to have children at some time. The doctor said, well, that's the way we would treat you, but if not, you're going to take Depo-Provera. The Depo-Provera, she would faint. She would be weak all the time. She gained about 40 pounds. She was sick all the time with the Depo-Provera. She called me. I remember the day when she called me. I was driving. I pulled over in a park and just did a little research and found that Chaseberry could solve the problems. She ordered the Chaseberry. I actually ordered it, shipped it to her place. She took it, and now she's off of Depo-Provera, takes no medicine. Every month, her cycle comes. She has no pain. It comes regularly. Everything's fine for $16.
We got a couple more questions. I want.
So anyway, to answer the brother's question about his particular medication, this is the way you do it. Go to Google, put in the name of your medication, put in the word side effects. The 2 word side effects. And then look at the side effects of your medication, and you will see that many times your medication is causing problems that you didn't realize that was the medication causing it. Many times men are getting no libido, erectile dysfunction. Well, that is the side effects of many of these medications.
Right.
And you didn't know that was the problem. So now you want to go to the doctor to get some type of medication for your lack of libido and your erectile dysfunction, when it's actually the medication that the doctor prescribed to you in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to do is that instead of just answering your question, I'm teaching you the way that you can answer your own questions. Because Heru's not going to be with you. I'm not going to be in your pocket for you to pull out to ask these questions, but your phone is in your pocket. And your phone has access to the library of the world. And everybody now needs to say to themselves, I'm going to look at all the medications that I have, and I'm going to research the side effects of those medications, because your doctor's not telling you. And once you find that out, you will then look for alternatives to those medications, which many of them have natural alternatives to. Because now you can actually go to what I've just shown you, vigiaccess.org, and put in the name of your medication and find out how many adverse events have been reported in the last 20 years. And I'm telling you that if you use this methodology, you will know more than your doctors, because you will ask them questions that they won't even be able to answer. I've debated many doctors, medical doctors, publicly, privately, and across the board. They are underperforming in their knowledge of the field that they're supposed to be experts in.
That's true.
This is the reality of the situation. Why do I have to tell Baba Amafika why, when someone loses the sense of smell and taste, is a zinc deficiency? It is because the zinc is being taken by your body to try to fight any type of virus. But they're not telling you that. They don't tell you anything about vitamin D. They just say flu season has come. They don't even tell you how to fight against flu season. It is not flu season, it's low vitamin D season. They don't give you the keys to life, whether it's wealth or health. And this is the whole point of everything that I'm saying, is going to be the point of everything that I'm saying. And the question then becomes, how do you help yourself? Gentlemen and ladies, anything that you're doing in America and you're a Black person, it is about self-help. You're going to have to learn to help yourself.
Say that.
They are not going to help you in any way to thrive in this world when it comes to wealth, when it comes to health. So it is imperative to you to be comfortable with the tools to be able to research what is being said to you from your doctors, from your lawyers, from whoever. Most of these people have no idea of the information relevant to their industry. They don't. They just don't. Whether it's some type of financial advisor, they're going to tell you to put your money in a 401k that's going to yield you 2% per year, and you could have put your money into Tesla stock and you would have gotten an 8x return, a 10x return, which means your $10,000 would have turned into $100,000. But you put it into a 401k, so that $10,000 over 5 years has only turned into $10,500. They don't tell you any of these things because they're supposed to be the experts. But then you look at the doctors, how long are they living? What is the average age that a doctor lives in America, 58 years old. That's below the life expectancy for the average American. You can say, oh, they have a lot of stress. Well, then they should know how to manage stress. But the reason why you know that they are not the paragons of health is because in many hospitals right now, you have a McDonald's in the lobby of the hospitals.
Mm.
Right.
Okay, and the hospital food shows you that they're not serious about health, because you can have a coronary bypass and they give you bacon for breakfast.
All right.
You can be there for diabetic shock and they'll give you Jello in the morning for breakfast. You can have cancer knowing that cancer feeds off of sugar, and they're feeding you sugar and they're giving you cheesecake. You see, they don't know what they're doing, people. So it's important for everyone to become a polymath. What is a polymath? Someone who is an expert and a genius in multiple fields. It is up to you to learn the best in health, you to learn the best in wealth, you to learn the best in energy, solar energy, it's up to you. They're not going to tell you the truth. A lot of them who want to tell you the truth can't even tell you the truth because they don't even know enough to tell you the truth.
Don't even know.
Okay? I'm just keeping it real. You know what I'm saying? I just want to keep it real. I want our people to be empowered, man. I don't want you to rely on me. I don't want you to buy my products to solve your problem. That's not what's important. What you need to learn is how to research your problem, how to look at medical studies, look at the studies, look to see who's funding the studies, look to see what the outcomes of these studies are, and then look to see how people are actually reacting to these things by looking at adverse reports and to see anecdotal reports of people actually healing themselves with a certain herb or a certain vitamin or what have you, and see how that pans out in the real world. That's the best way to go about it. So what's the next question?
Well, I got a couple that are somewhat related. One sister was asking, she had just gotten out of the hospital 3 weeks ago, and she was on remdesivir. While there, she wanted to know, is it possible that, if she got onto ivermectin, that it might be helpful at the stage that she in? And another brother was asking if you somehow got the jab, what precautions can you take?
Okay, well, here's the thing. There's a couple things. If you get the jab and you don't suffer adverse effects, I mean, I have people who took the jab and they almost felt like they were going to die. I know people personally, and I know people who died after taking the jab, like shortly after. Healthy people, heart attacks. Most of what's happening with the jab, because it's stimulating what you call the spike protein, and what Dr. Geert is saying is that later on, the people who took the jabs are probably going to develop autoimmune illnesses. And that might show up in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So what you want to do is that if you get the jab and you're suffering from side effects, you're going to have to cut out inflammatory foods, because the side effects are going to be side effects based on inflammation. So you're going to cut out the inflammatory foods. That's sugar, number one. White rice, white flour, soda drinks, all those, you're going to cut them out because you're just going to be feeding the problem. And then you're going to want to take anti-inflammatory herbs. The best I know is olive leaf extract. Black seed oil is good too, which is Nigella sativa. You're going to want to take turmeric, is very anti-inflammatory. You're going to also want to take activated charcoal to see if you can get rid of some of these effects of the vaccine, which activated charcoal, because of its properties being basically pure carbon, is going to bind on to any type of medications or medicines and try to clear that up. Also, you want to use cilantro. Some of these vaccines have heavy metals in them. Cilantro clears the body from heavy metals. If you want to put cilantro in your smoothies, I have a cilantro product, which is moringa and cilantro. You don't have to get it from me. That's not the point of this. I'm not here to market anything to you. I just want you to be able to learn how to solve your problem. So I would take that, but so everything would be anti-inflammatory in terms of dealing with any effects of the virus. And then you would use activated charcoal to try to cleave yourself out of these types of shots that you took. But the key is going to be anti-inflammatory diet, anti-inflammatory herbs. Okay, and for the woman who said that she just got out, and what was it that she said she took it? What was the question? There was something else on top of her taking the.
Yeah, she got out and took remdesivir.
Right. So remdesivir, basically, you're probably going to have. You're very fortunate that your kidneys didn't shut off. If your kidneys shut off, they would have put you on they would have put you on some type of ventilator and you're out of here. Then they would have said you died from COVID, and then all your friends and family would have said you died from COVID, when it was actually the remdesivir. So what you want to do with the remdesivir, you want to take your activated charcoal to try to clear a lot of that out of your body. In terms of repairing your kidneys, I would use olive leaf extract to help repair your kidneys. It plays a major role in helping to repair kidneys. So that's what I would advise for her. Now, in terms of ivermectin, this is a very important piece because there's no point in talking about it if you can't get it. So there is a website called the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance. These are doctors who are not playing, they're not dancing to the beat of the FDA and the CDC. These are doctors who treat people who have seen what works in treating people. And so they have a section for ivermectin on the website. I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to give people the link. There it is there. And it shows you how to get ivermectin. This is a very important site because when you go on where to get the ivermectin.
We don't see it.
Yeah, I haven't shared the screen yet.
Oh, okay.
But I just put the link into the
chat.
The chat.
Okay.
Well,
Yes.
what I'll do is just for people to see very quickly. Okay, so now I will share this screen because what's the point of talking about it if you can't get your hands on it? So that's it there. All right, so this is the page. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, how to get ivermectin. It gives you the dosages, it gives you the studies, and I didn't even go over the epidemiological evidence for ivermectin, but basically all the African countries, because ivermectin won the Nobel Prize for human medicine, largely for eradicating river blindness, which is a disease mainly in West Africa. People who live by the rivers, they get infected through this parasite and they go blind. And ivermectin completely eradicated that disease and has been given over billions, 2 to 3 billion doses. It eradicated that disease, so it was given a Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2015 for it. And from that, they were able to actually look at the fact that ivermectin is given out freely. In most countries, ivermectin you can get over the counter because you saw the safety profile. It's safer than Tylenol. So you can get it over the counter. And the countries that suffer from river blindness, they actually give ivermectin twice a year for free to people. So people take it. And what they found out was they did a map. If I can find it, they did a map that showed the COVID deaths up against the countries where people are given ivermectin twice a year. And what they found out is that people given ivermectin, the countries that actually gave people ivermectin for river blindness, they have basically 0 COVID deaths. I mean, it's amazing. I have it. I can show you, but I don't. We're pressed for time. So on the ivermectin page, you have it here, and then there's a section that says how to get ivermectin. So the way you can get ivermectin is they have a list of doctors who will prescribe you ivermectin. They have the list here, and it could be according to your state. So you see right here,
Right,
You see the different states.
right,
You can call this person, sometimes it'll be like $50 for consultation. They will give you a prescription, and then you will go to the pharmacies section, and then you have the pharmacies who are giving people ivermectin. And it'll show you the state. So some of them will ship it to you, and then some of them are pharmacies, they'll get the address, and you can go there if it's in your state or your city, okay? And this is the way that you can do, and these are the places that you can get it overnight shipping. And that's how you can get ivermectin, okay? So there is a civil war going on in the medical community. There are conscientious doctors who are not having it. They are not gonna let people die. So in every fiasco, you have some people who come out as heroes. And these doctors are coming out as heroes because they are not going by the company line. And they are risking their profession to do it, a lot of them. So that's it there. I'm going to stop sharing that. So that's how you get ivermectin. And let me see how I can get out of this screen.
yeah, stop here. While you're doing
Stop
that.
share? Yeah, I did that. Stop share. So
Good.
what's the next question?
Yeah, just, I don't see any more except one that came earlier. When you were listing certain doctors that you said we should follow,
Yes,
some had offered some more, wanted to know if you knew about them and what you thought about them.
Sure.
One was Dr. Rashid Buthar, the other was Dr. Velva Bowles, Dr. Christina Parks,
Yeah.
and Dr. Vladimir Zelenko.
yes. Okay, so let's start with Dr. Vladimir Zelenko. Dr. Vladimir Zelenko, this was in March of 2020. He started treating people with hydroxychloroquine. And he has, I think, close to 100% success rate in treating people. And he's a Hasidic Jew in New York, and he treats a small community of people. And so they all came to him, and he started treating them with hydroxychloroquine. I have Dr. Zelenko's study that anyone can look at. I had it available on screen that anyone can just get it and look at. But basically, his protocol was using hydroxychloroquine and zinc. Okay, and if anyone wants to look at his study, it is readily available for anyone to read, and it is also on the, here it is, right here. I am going to share the screen again so you can look at it. So share screen, right here. That is the study. All right, you see it?
Yes.
COVID-19 outpatients, early risk stratified treatment with zinc plus low dose hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, a retrospective case series studies. You see, Dr. Vladimir Zelenko, right there. And it's a well-done study, peer-reviewed, all of that. And basically, he says it's been very effective in his treatment. You know, and you can go ahead and read it. Anyone who wants to study, I can put it in the chat as well. I mean, I have, as you can tell, I have hundreds of studies that I can draw on. I'll stop sharing that, and I will just put the thing right here. Okay. All right. So someone's asking about the amount of zinc one should take. So you can just, I recommend zinc picolinate. I will show you the zinc that I recommend, or picolinate, as some people would like to say. I can show you the zinc that I get, and that is, you can just go to Amazon and get it. And zinc picolinate, okay, Solgar. This is what I use.
In the Florida area, you can get it at Whole Foods.
Yeah, you can get it. You can get it at Whole Foods. You can get it at most of the Whole Foods anywhere in the United States. So let me share that screen real quick so you all can see. All right, that's it. for the whopping price of $7.41. So what you're gonna do is they have a recommended dosage. And you can take the recommended dosage, you know, on a regular basis. But then when you start to get sick, I advise you take 3 times the dosage. Okay? The moment you get symptoms, you take 3 times the dosage. Okay, along with a zinc ionophore. And this is also the same company that I used to get my quercetin. So I'll show you what the quercetin looks like. Right, that's it here. That's it there.
Right.
Whopping price of $16.82. Okay,
Go.
that's what you do. And you just take their recommended dosage. And if you start to get sick, you're going to take 3 times the dosage for 5 days. If you start to feel any symptoms, like if I start to feel any symptom, anything, I go ahead and just triple up. And I take this along with olive leaf extract. So I'm taking 2 different ionophores, just in case. Then I'm taking my zinc. So hopefully that answers the question there.
Right.
And whatever the youth dosage is, they will have it on the ages, and they will have it on the bottle itself. And in the youth dosage, you can try to double it up.
Right. For
Okay.
those people who asked about this video, is that in the chat, you know, I gave my email address and Baba Amafika's email address. We'll have information for you on that, where we can direct you to where it's be held, or we can send it out. So you can use those 2 email addresses for your inquiry.
Yes, and someone asked about Dr. Jessica Rose. Dr. Jessica Rose, her, everyone needs to listen to what she has to say. She is, she's a data analyst for diseases. And she testified in front of the FDA when they were considering the booster shots. And there is a video that I'm not going to play, but we'll just let you all know where it is, where you can get it. Okay. This is the video.
Even if
Okay. And you want to start, I'm going to give you the link to the video. It will be, you all want to listen to, you want to start at 4 hours and 1 minute. And each presentation is 3 minutes long. So it's a total of 54 minutes. So it was an expert panel. And that expert panel had Dr. Jessica Rose, I had a bunch of other people, and it talks about the adverse events, and it talks about how it's misleading the numbers that the VAERS system is coming up with. And everyone needs to listen to it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the link. I'm going to show you. So you want to listen at the 4:01 mark. This is it here. All right. And this is from the FDA itself. I'm going to share this screen very quickly with you all. See, what I like to do is I like to go to these people's sources and quote them. The reason why you can is that they're so arrogant that they're going to leave all that information there because they know you're not going to look into it. That's how bad it is. So this is it here. Can you all see it?
Yeah, we can see the screen.
All right. This is the title of it, Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee on November 7th, 2021, U.S. Food and Drug Administration. This is their YouTube channel. When you go there, I'm going to give you the link. You're going to start at 4 hours and 1 minute. I'm going to provide the link in the chat. There you go. You want to start at 4 hours and 1 minute. And you're going to listen for 1 hour. And the things that you're going to hear, these experts say, are nothing that your news covered. And they're talking about how unacceptable the adverse events are, the numbers are with COVID. I mean, with the vaccines. And Dr. Jessica Rose is one of the people. And it's fascinating. It is fascinating. Like this slide here, excess death life ratio is unacceptable. Okay.
Okay.
So the amount of people who died from the vaccine versus the people that it saved actually was greater. And she shows how. She shows how she came up with that. So for every life, do you see that right here? Where it says excess death life ratio is unacceptable? Do you see Pfizer 6 months? Does everyone see that?
Right.
Yes.
Okay, excess deaths required to save a COVID life, 5, and lives saved. So what they're saying is that for every 1 person that is saved by the vaccine, 5 people die from the vaccine.
Oh, goodness.
Like this is, I'm not making any of this up. I just need you all to just know where to find this information. FDA site itself, and just go to the 4 hour and 1 minute mark, and just listen for an hour. They are not sharing useful information with you. It is all manufactured and propaganda information based on their own sources, but they know you're not going to look into the sources. They haven't even scrubbed this from their YouTube site. I mean, if I was involved in this, I would tell them, hey, you can't post that on YouTube. But then the person's going to say, they're not going to read it anyway. They're not going to listen to it anyway. They're not even going to check for it anyway. So they just leave it there. They just leave it there. This is how arrogant and how empowered they feel. That they literally can tell you that ivermectin is just a dewormer for horses. And you're just going to believe it and say, I ain't taking no animal medication. I could die from that. When it's actually given to human beings more than animals. It won the Nobel Prize for human use. And it has many functions besides being anti-parasitical, actually being anti-cancer, being anti so many other things. It's incredible what ivermectin can do. Are there any other?
I don't see any more questions
Okay.
that you have.
One thing I would ask of Brother Heru, can you clarify from what I understood and heard, this whole issue about ivermectin being for horses, et cetera?
Yeah.
As I understand it, there are 2 totally different forms of the ivermectin brand. One that is used for horses, but it's not the same thing as is used for humans and vice versa.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Somewhat. So it is the same chemical compound, ivermectin. And you see, it is used for both human beings and mammals. Just like penicillin is used for human beings and mammals. But if you were to take penicillin, nobody would ever accuse you of taking horse medicine, right?
Right.
This is the same thing they've done with ivermectin. It works for human beings and animals. So yes, it is prescribed for animals, but to say that it is animal medication is a lie of omission. These people are what I call scientific obscurantists. They try to obscure the facts so that you will behave in a desired behavior, which is stay away from this thing because you don't want to take animal medication. But it's completely disingenuous. It's completely a lie. And so now in terms of the prescriptions, in getting ivermectin, yes, you can go to an animal feed store and get ivermectin. You can go to Amazon.com and you can get ivermectin without a prescription. And it will have, and it will be, that will be the one for animals.
I just saw a piece that popped up in the chat. Some sister made mention of it. Human beings forgetting that, you know, they're animals too, or mammals too. And it reminds me, Brother Haru, that isn't it a fact that one of the key stages or phases of all of the so-called investigations that lead to the eventual approval
Or animal
of some
trials.
medications are animal trials?
You would be correct. You would only be 100% correct. But what I'm saying is that, so once, you see, I wasn't hip to ivermectin. See, you know, Malcolm X said something, you know, a long time ago. Malcolm X said something to the effect that the media, the mass media, the manipulators and the creators of lies, and those who try to cover up the truth, and whoever they tell you not to follow, that's who you need to run to. That's what Malcolm X said. Whatever leader they tell you not to, whatever black leader they tell you not to follow, that's who you need to run to. And the leader they tell you to follow, that's the one you need to run away from. So I've always kept that in my mind in my analysis. And when I heard them talk about ivermectin being a horse dewormer, I already knew about ivermectin because I live part-time in Africa. I live half-time in Africa, I live half-time, and I'm familiar with ivermectin because of people who use it for river blindness and all different types of infection, and it's also used for malaria. And in the United States, it's used for rosacea. As a matter of fact, in the United States, if you're coming from certain companies, the Office of Immigration for the United States demands that you take ivermectin before you come into the United States. I could even find where they have that. Like if you gave me a couple, I could find the directive by the US immigration telling people to take ivermectin before they come to the United States that are coming from different parts of the world. The same people who told you it's dangerous and all of this. So what I want to do is, so someone says they're plant-based ivermectin. No, what ivermectin is that it is a byproduct from a bacteria that's naturally occurring from, they found in the soil of Japan. And what they did was they made a few revisions to it, to its chemical structure. They could patent it and made ivermectin. What they found out was the revision they made actually made it more resistant. It was already resistant. It didn't let other pathogens become resistant to it. And it was very effective in eradicating all of them. And so, ivermectin actually is a quasi-synthetic. Much of it is actually natural. So it's not actually plant-based. It's a natural occurring bacteria, just like you have good bacteria and bad bacteria. Like if you're into studying gut health, probiotics is good bacteria. And then you'd have bad bacteria, which would be like, you know, or bad pathogens like yeast forming in your stuff, causing you to have like, you know, yeast infections or what have you. This is what I want to do is I want to end by talking to the healers, because the only people who would stay on this long are people who are interested in healing or are healers. Okay. What I want to do for the healers is this. I want you all to be aware of and to study these particular studies. It is going to be particularly important for us moving forward as more of these pandemics may come about through folly or through whatever. So what I want to do is I want to share these studies. These are the two studies that I want you all to be very, and then I want you to know the structure of ivermectin. I mean, I could do a whole 10-hour lecture on ivermectin. That's how deep I got into it. Because once I found out that they were lying about it, I said there must be something to it. I just used the Malcolm X philosophy. If they're lying about something, then they're trying to hide something, and it might be something that we want to start looking into. And when I started looking into, Malcolm X was completely correct. That if they tell you something not to do, you might want to start studying it and probably do it. So, so I'm going to show you, I'm going to close with this for the healers, because particularly those of us who are into Africa and African people and all of that, I want us to really start getting serious about studying these things on a very serious level. So this, I'm going to share this with you. I'm going to share the studies and you all can read it on your own. Anybody who wants to have any further conversations with me, I would love to have these conversations and we can compare notes. Okay, so, all right. We are going to share the screen again as I end this. It's my special note to healers. Let's go to share screen. Okay, here we go. Okay. This is, let me move this. This is the structure of ivermectin. Okay. I need all of the healers who are on this. And don't be upset or intimidated that it looks like a chemical compound. This is, you'll see similar structures for naturally occurring herbal medicines as well, whether it be olive leaf extract, turmeric, whatever. This is just basic chemistry, okay? So you have the natural chemistries and you have the synthetic chemistry. So this is the structure. Can everyone see ivermectin?
We can see it.
Yes, this is the structure. I'm going to need the people who are healers and those who have children who are interested in being healers to start studying this structure right here. There is something about this structure that does something that other things, other medications, other herbs are not able to do. What are those things? Well, let me give you a list. All right, first of all, this paper here talks about the different mechanisms of action of ivermectin against COVID. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yes. This is what's important. When anyone wants to debate you or anything, ivermectin doesn't work, hydroxychloroquine doesn't work, quercetin doesn't work, zinc ionophore, blah, 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 vaccine, vaccine, vaccine. That's the only thing that works, because quiet as kept, the way that the vaccines are not efficient and they're not effective, many people who are vaccinated are going to need to know how to treat themselves early because the vaccines are not working over time. I showed you the studies that prove that. And then they don't work very well against variants. I can show you studies to prove that as well. But what you need to know is this. This paper here talks about ivermectin and all of its mechanisms of actions against viruses. If you look at this, it has 5 modes of action, possible modes of action that it can draw. It can inactivate the extracellular virus particles. It can prevent viral attachment and or entry. It can prevent replication of the viral genome. That's what we talked about, right? Preventing the replication. But look at that, before it even starts to replicate, it can stop it from entering the cell in the first place. It can also inactivate it outside of the cell. So I only talked to you about one mechanism of action, but look at this. It can prevent the synthesis of the viral protein. It also can prevent the release of the new infections. Now, it talks about here how it works against COVID. So no one, there's no evidence, it's just a horse dewormer, it's just an anti-parasitical. There are 20, look at this, level 1 to 20 mechanisms of action. And it talks about them in depth. I need the healers to start studying these types of documents so that when we have these conversations with people, we'll be able to talk from a very serious point of view, because a lot of people who are against these vaccines are just intuitively against it because they just don't trust the system. But we got to be able to articulate better than that. And the articulation is all there for us by just using our smartphones. I'm just giving you some of the keys to go look at this information, but this is the study. It gives you 20 different mechanisms of action. It shows you how it acts as an anti-inflammatory, as one mechanism of action. And then the zinc ionophore action out of the 20, look, level 3, action as an ionophore. See that? That's only one mechanism of action that I told you all about. So imagine me doing a lecture on all 20 mechanisms of action. How long that would take. But this is how deep ivermectin is. Now, when we start talking about ivermectin, also, these are the 2 studies that I want you all to know about, the healers. And I'm going to attach these studies in the chat. Can everyone see ivermectin, a potential anti-cancer drug derived from an anti-parasitic drug?
Yes.
So if anyone tells you that it's just an anti-parasitic, there's a study on cancer. There's another study. This study, the multi-targeted drug ivermectin, from an anti-parasitic agent to a repositioned cancer drug. And when you read the information, it gets even deeper. Okay, it shows you how it works as an anti-tumor, and it actually stops it from spreading, which is actually the most difficult part of fighting a cancer. We've successfully, with olive leaf extract, gotten rid of cancer tumors, and we have testimonials on our website. But when it starts to spread, it becomes very difficult. But cancer stops the metastasis. It stops the spreading. So let's just read quickly this one here on ivermectin. Right here. Ivermectin, can everyone see this?
Yes.
Ivermectin has powerful anti-tumor effects, including the inhibition and proliferation, metastasis, and angiogenic activity in a variety of cancer cells. This may be related to the regulation of multiple signaling pathways by ivermectin through PAK1 kinase. On the other hand, ivermectin promotes programmed cancer cell death, including apoptosis, autophagy, and pyroptosis. Ivermectin induces apoptosis and autophagy or autophagy is mutually regulated. Interestingly, ivermectin can also inhibit tumor stem cells and reverse multi-drug resistance and exerts the optimal effect when used in combination with other chemotherapy drugs. So it doesn't even get in the way of their treatment of what they're trying to do. This is how resilient ivermectin is. Okay? And what I'm going to share these, I want the healers to read this, to really be conversant on this. This one and this one. Then there is another study that I want you all to be very familiar with that discusses the different diseases that ivermectin is known to actually treat and work against. And when you see the list of diseases, you will be shocked. So remember, it has a higher safety profile than Tylenol. So if you've ever taken Tylenol, then you're actually safe for taking ivermectin. Okay. Here, I just want to get into the different, I jotted them down. Okay. It may not be there. It might be this one. Okay. This study is very important too. Ivermectin Antiviral properties. So anyone tells you it's just a dewormer, they have not done their homework. It shows you the antiviral nature of it. It is most possibly this study here. You just have to bear with me. This is a very important study that I need you all. Okay. Listen, so this is ivermectin, an enigmatic, multifaceted wonder drug, continues to surprise and exceed expectations. So this is the guy who discovered it in Japanese soil. That's him right there. Satoshi Omura. He discovered it, I believe, in 73. Yeah, in 73. Okay. This talks about the history of ivermectin and what they've seen that it can actually do and why they're calling it a wonder drug. Everybody who's interested in healing should read this. Past unmatched success. It shows you what it does in cell culture. And this is people in Africa with river blindness, and it also affects the skin. It completely eradicated that. Okay. All right. All right, here are the different diseases. The following are an indication of the divergent disease fighting potential that has been identified for ivermectin so far. Myisis. It's an infestation where fly larvae grows inside the host. So it's a parasite that you will get. And it actually happens to a lot of people who are in poor and rural tropical communities where these type of flies thrive, and people use ivermectin to get rid of it. So that's the anti-parasitic nature. Trichinosis, that's roundworms. Disease vector control, that is with killing broad range of insects. So insects themselves don't even like ivermectin. So it keeps insects away. It works on malaria. It works on another thing called leishmaniasis, right? Then it works on sleeping sickness, right? The tsetse for fly. It will actually bite people and animals as well, and they will develop a sleeping sickness and end up dying. Affects human beings, affects animals. Chagas disease, you can look what that is. This other one, it is very effective for bed bugs. It's very effective for rosacea. It's actually what is prescribed in America for rosacea. If you look up rosacea treatment, it is ivermectin that they prescribe to human beings to treat basically the diseases that have to do with mites, and particularly people who are suffering from Lyme disease have found this to be very, very useful, and has gotten rid of their Lyme disease where nothing else got rid of their Lyme disease. Asthma, it works for asthma. Epilepsy, they find that it works for epilepsy. Neurological diseases, they found out that it's actually effective for neurological diseases. Okay? Antiviral, HIV, dengue, encephalitis, they found that it works for that. Antibacterial, they found that it works for tuberculosis. Anti-cancer, as I've shown you, they found out that it's anti-cancer as well. Okay? So what I'm going to need our healers to do is to become very conversant on not only ivermectin, but these anti-parasitics, because it looks like these anti-parasitics have different mechanisms of actions besides just getting rid of a worm inside of you or getting rid of malaria. They're hugely antiviral, particularly by being zinc ionophores, but they're antiviral in other ways by also being anti-inflammatory. We need to be on the front line of this. We need to be on the front line of this. We need to be on the front line of the research of these anti-parasitics, whether it be olive leaf extract and its chemical structure, because olive leaf extract gets rid of worms too. It gets rid of malaria as well. Ivermectin, the avermectins, the neem oil, all of these things, the hydroxy, we need to study the chemical structure. We need to understand its synthesis. We need to be able to make these things on our own. We need to be able to identify other anti-parasitics that might be very helpful in treating a wide variety of diseases. This is the charge that our healers have to take up. Because what we have seen is that in a time of a pandemic, the prevailing medical system is woefully inadequate in solving problems. They were woefully inadequate prior to the pandemic by showing you early on in this that the third leading cause of death is iatrogenic death by doctor, which shows you that they are not effective in treating illnesses, because if they get their hands on you, you will be more likely of getting the third, you become a statistic for the third highest cause of death. You have to study these on your own, the lives of your family, the lives of your friends, the ones who will listen to you, because those of us who are healers from the herbal point of view, we have family members who do not listen to us. They would rather listen to their doctor, who knows much less than what we know. You can go and show the doctor the studies, and the doctor will look at it, oh, that's interesting, and they'll go ahead and still give you a hysterectomy. As a matter of fact, in my sister's case, when her problem was resolved, she went back to her doctor, hey doc, I don't have problems with my period anymore. I don't have any more pain. I use Vitex. Do you know anything about it? The doctor just said, I've never heard of it. This is the top gynecologist in Miami who charged my sister tens of thousands of dollars through insurance to give her Depo-Provera and side effects. You know, medicine now is pretty much one of the only professions where the person gets paid irrespective of results.
That's true.
Imagine going to your mechanic because your car got problems. You take it to the mechanic and you drive out and your car falls apart. And the mechanic still wants to keep the money. Why is it that you go to these doctors and people ended up worse off than what they were? Doctors are not, they get paid regardless of performance. I actually believe that medicine should be really, it should be completely radicalized and changed where people only get paid for performance. And I bet you if they got paid for performance, there would be performance. I'm just talking about the United States and most parts of the world. People are saying in Britain, if you don't get better, the doctors don't get paid. I have to look into that because I know cancer doctors in Britain who are very well paid, and I know they ain't making no progress. But what I'm trying to say is that they are not incentivized to heal you. They are more incentivized to give you pharmaceutical drugs that are under patent because they don't even want to prescribe you drugs that don't have a patent anymore.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay. Yes, someone asked about ivermectin and black seed. Well, I went over the studies for ivermectin. So if you're asking me, do I have studies about ivermectin, that means you weren't listening. Because I went over a lot of studies for ivermectin. But what I can do for you is show you the studies on black seed. So black seed is referred to as Nigel sativa. So there are studies on black seed, and if I can pull up the studies, I will show it to you. It is Nigella sativa. There are a few studies for it, and let me see if I can find it. Or you can email me and I can give you the study. But black seed is a great anti-inflammatory. And the name for black seed is Nigella sativa. And so what I would have to do is I just have to find the exact place in the study. Yeah, here we go, Nigella sativa. Okay. So there are studies Nigella sativa. And here we go. Let me share the screen. And I'll show you how I found these studies, okay? So I'm going to share the screen with you here. Share. Okay. So on this site here, what I did was I went to, right here, ivmeta.com is the site that showed the studies for ivermectin and the peer-reviewed studies. They say, oh, there's no studies showing it works, da, 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 da. You just point them to this 44 peer-reviewed studies, okay? Now, what I then did was I looked for Nigella sativa, which they have on here, to the right-hand side. Can you guys see?
Yes.
Okay, you click Nigella sativa. Here it is. All studies show a 67% improvement of people who took Nigella sativa. Okay, and remember that the FDA, if anything is effective for like vaccines, they're looking to see a 30% improvement. And so Nigella sativa would pass the FDA's standards and the CDC standards. Randomized controlled trial, there are 3 of them, 915 patients, 84% efficacy. You all see that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's how you do it. You just go on that site and go to everything on the right here, and they will tell you if it works or it doesn't. Look at remdesivir. Someone asked about remdesivir?
Yeah.
Oh, look at the studies. 19% efficacy. This is the standard of care in the hospitals. Guess what happens? ICU admission, negative 17%, which means that it's hurting people more than it's helping. Hospitalization after you're hospitalized, negative 36%. It's hurting people more than it's helping people. Nothing is over 30%, but they keep giving it to people. Why? Because it's under patent and it costs $3,000 per dose. And Fauci approved it. Look at it, look at the numbers. They'll give you remdesivir, which costs $3,000 per pill, but they won't give you ivermectin, which costs $1 per pill. I'm going to juxtapose that with the ivermectin studies. Again, look, 86%, 86%, 66, 70%, 73%. Late treatment is over 30%. Except one is 20%. We have to look at the randomized, but that's late treatment. What they mean by late treatment is when someone's lungs is completely coagulated and they're on a ventilator. But we see that this is much more effective than remdesivir, but they are prescribing remdesivir to you. Now, I've stayed on very long. I know that a lot of people got things to do in the morning. I think that this was comprehensive enough to start you off, to start looking at everything that I've been saying and cross-check that information. And people can email me on my website, herbalresults.net. If you want to get the studies, I have the list of all the studies. I put them all on one page. I probably will just list the studies on my website so people can go to. I've been very careful not to put too many COVID things from my website before someone tries to report it and shut it down or whatever. But the reality is the reality. The studies are the studies. And to be completely honest, this type of conversation should have happened over a year ago amongst those of us who are interested in healing. I mean, I've had these conversations with people. I've done extensive write-ups on Facebook, people who are my Facebook friends and all of this, but this is something that should be continuing. And it's not just me. There are other people who are looking into these things. But a lot of times I find that when we do have these conversations, a lot of the conversations start talking about how evil Fauci is, and we spend an hour talking about that, but we don't talk about mechanisms of action. We don't talk about what to do if you get sick. We don't talk about why something works, why something doesn't work. These are the type of conversations that we should have. We should be having conversations amongst African healers to find out what are they seeing as the best protocols. They can say, yo, Haru, I was using 500 milligrams of quercetin, but it worked better when I used 750. You get what I'm saying? These are the types of conversations I would like to have. These are the type of conversations we need to have. But our conversations are limited to whether you're pro-Trump or against Trump. That's the conversation. And we're wasting our time because at the end of the day, our people are depending on us. You don't know how many phone calls I get, I wish some of the burden would be taken off of me. Where other people would be able to concise information and fact check this information, not with news articles, but with scientific studies. That's the level that we have to be on. Marcus Garvey said that Africans, to get out of our situation, we're going to need science par excellence. We're going to have scientists par excellence. We can't run away from it, people. We can't run away from reading these people's scientific studies to see if there's conflict of interest, to be able to alert our people, hey, this study was done by Pfizer. This is the study that they're using to say that Pfizer vaccines work, funded by Pfizer. Here's the study. We should be able to give people chapter and verse on all of these studies. So what I'm trying to say is, yeah, this was a great conversation, but this should not be an anomaly. This is a conversation that we should be having on this level all the time. The information is there, the studies are there, it's easy to access, but what are we using our phones for? Checking out what happened with Beyonce last week. Posting our food and what we just ate on Facebook. Celebrity gossip, celebrity news, this, that, entertainment. And our people are looking at us and saying, do you have any solutions for the problem? And all we can say is, well, Fauci is evil. That is not what someone who can't breathe because they've got the first signs of COVID needs to hear. They need to know, what can I do to reverse this situation? And this is the conversation that we need to have. We can have all others later. We have to approach our healing as if there's someone sick in dire straits right in front of us. And what the hell are we going to do to solve this problem? All other conversations are null and void. So I've gotten off my soapbox. As you can tell, I get passionate about this, but I get over 50 phone calls and emails a day with people sick with all different types of problems. People sick with their doctor's medications, people with COVID who can't breathe. I have good friends who are in a hospital for COVID, who make it, some don't make it. They come out, their lungs are damaged. And we gotta be able to tell them what to do. Not to talk about news articles and how CNN is misleading us and they're full of this and that, blah, 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 blah. That person who can't breathe doesn't want to hear that. They want to know, yo, can I take an herb or is there anything I can take? And guess what? Those people here who are completely against pharmaceuticals, I am against pharmaceuticals, but I am somebody who's married to results. I am not married to methodology or ideology. I'm married to results because who feels it knows it. When someone's sick, they don't care if it's a pharmaceutical or it's an herb that's going to heal them. They just want to be better. They just want to be better. So we need to know what is available in our tool, in our arsenal that actually works based on scientific studies and based on what we're seeing in real life data, talking to other doctors, talking to other healers, other naturopaths. What are you seeing in the real world? I talk to doctors all the time. What are you seeing? What do you see in the ICUs? Are the ICU beds full? And no, they're not full. Why are they reporting it's full in all the hospitals? I can call 10 of my friends who are doctors. It's not full, it's not full, it's not full. At the beginning of the pandemic, when they try and tell you that all the ICU beds were full, I could call my friends and say, hey, you're in New York where they're saying it's the epicenter. Are the ICU beds full? No, actually they're not. We're having conversations, we're sharing information with each other. This person responded to this. This person didn't respond to this. They didn't respond to this dosage. They responded to this herb better. This herb caused these side effects, this, that. These are the conversations we should be having so we know what to expect, because at the end of the day, we are on our own. We're on our own. And this is not even like what I do all day long. I don't call myself a doctor or this or that or these types of things. I'm just somebody who has intellectual curiosity and has been able to solve problems, whether it's in the field of finance or health. That's what I post a lot on Facebook about investing your money, business development, Africa, you know what I'm saying, health. So because I'm intellectually curious, it leads me to go down this road. And I think that there's at least 90% of the people here are intellectually curious. That's why you're on this call right now. So we are going to have to do better. If we're going to be taken seriously, we have to provide solutions for our people. It's not enough to say, these people are evil, don't listen to them. What is the alternative? And do you have an alternative that works? That's the question. And why does it work? Who has it worked on? These are important things to say. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox, y'all. I could talk about this all day long, but as you can see, the 3 questions: is the vaccine as effective as marketed? I showed you no through their studies, their own studies. Is the vaccine safe? I showed you no through their own statistics. Is there an alternative to this vaccine, which they've seen as the end-all solution to this pandemic? Are there alternatives? Yes. And the key is zinc ionophores. That's the key. So thank you all for your time. Thank you all for tolerating how long this took, but there was a reason why it took long. Some of the best things take time. This is not fast food. You're not going to get an answer in 2 minutes. I can give you an answer in 2 seconds, but I need to explain to you why I'm telling you that. See, that's the other side of it too. The earth is round. Why? How do you know the earth is round? Who knows how to figure out the earth is round? We just end up repeating things. Well, the earth is round because you can actually do a shadow test and you can find the measurements of the stick on the shadow. And when you do the measurements of the stick of the shadow, it coincides to the equations for the circumference of a circle and nothing else. That's how you know that the earth is round, because of how the sun, quote unquote, moves in the sky, and you can watch through a stick and its shadow, and you can measure the length of the stick over time, the stick's shadow, and the length decreases over time based on the calculations that you would use, the same calculations for circle geometry. So what I'm saying is that repeating what we hear is not enough. Trusting someone is not enough. Don't even trust what I'm saying. Double check it and then do your own experiments. I'm doing my own experiments. Right now I'm doing experiments with ivermectin. My own experiments on my own. Because when I started my olive leaf extract business, I did experiments with olive leaf extract myself. I read the studies, but then I took it myself, got rid of my eczema, got rid of my asthma. Damn, this thing works. Gave it to friends, got rid of their high blood pressure, diabetes. Damn, this thing works. Then I started getting, using a factory to mass produce it. That's how it happened. But the best scientist is the one who tests their concoctions and their theories on themselves. You test it on yourself first so that you'll be intimately familiar. But many of these doctors will not take any of the medications that they prescribe. They know better. And as a matter of fact, they found that the biggest objection to taking the COVID vaccine comes from people with PhDs. They did a survey poll and they found that the biggest resistance to taking the vaccine is the population of people who have PhDs. As a matter of fact, the nuclear lab, Los Alamos, they just put a vaccine mandate, and all the scientists there, the nuclear scientists, are going on strike because they will not take the vaccine because they have read the studies. They know better. So I'm gonna end. I talked a lot. Good questions for everybody. You can reach me, just go to herbalresults.net. Go to the go to the contact, you can reach me, but I advise you all, Don't go on there just to buy anything. Go on there, go to the science pages and read the scientific studies on vitamin D and COVID and respiratory systems and moringa and how it works for different things, and cilantro, what it does, and olive leaf, what it does, and the multitude of illnesses that it actually reverses. And you'll find out that this information exists in the open air. And the question is why we don't know about it, because they say if you want to hide something, just put it in the library. Because the people are not going to double check. Now end with that.
Thanks a lot, Brother Heru. Family, I'm sure that you all have appreciate this. All right, there's Brother Amafika. Maybe you would like to end this session for us, Baba. Sound us off.
It makes me feel a little bit like my growing up days in the church classroom.
You're breaking up. You're breaking up, Amafika. I think you need the headphones. You're breaking up.
Yeah, you take it and close it out, brother, because that thing was, I'm not used to wearing it.
Oh,
Ear, so
it's hard to hear you.
close it out for us.
Oh, close it out.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just basically close it out, just thank everybody for listening and having the patience. I see a lot of people on here. Contact me if you have, any questions. If you want to get the studies, I'll probably put them all up on my website. It'll just be a COVID page. It'll deal with the vaccine efficacy studies, the vaccine safety studies, and the vaccine alternative studies. And all of the links will be there for people to look at. I'll put it up there somewhere in the next couple of days. But if you want to get them very quickly, just go to info@herbalresults.net, email me, and I'll send you the information that I have. And I just hope that those people listening, I would love to have conversations with you in terms of people who have other information and other real life experience that they see has worked. So people ask me what religion I'm in, and I tell them my religion is results. That's it.
All right.
That's the only thing I believe in. I only believe in results. So if I got to chant Buddha's name 1,000,000 times to reverse cancer, and I find that works, I'll chant Buddha's name. If I'm not married to a methodology. I just want to know what works. Whatever works, that's what I'm going to. So that's where we're at with it. Results. That's where we're at. Let's produce results, people. Results. That's the only thing that matters. Results.
Thanks a lot, brother. And family, he put a lot of information up on the screen. As I said, this video will be shared. Just inquire from Brother Amafika and myself. Go to his website, do the research. Let this not be a feel-good session. You don't have to brag about how much you learned. Let's put that into action. I want to thank you, Brother Heru, for the time that you spent. I know it's a lot of energy. You did a lot of work. And,
no problem. No problem, man. No problem. And I want to thank you all for actually hosting something like this. This is very important. And there's a definitive role for elders in our community, and that you all put this together as the eldership, because the elders are the custodians of the people. Thank you for having this type of program for people, so that people are interested. And I'm just going to end with a quiz. We're just going to end with a quiz. Someone comes to you and they think that they have COVID because they have a sore throat, they have lack of taste, lack of smell, they have a fever, they're aching and all that. They haven't even taken a COVID test, but they're exhibiting these things on day one. What would you tell them to do? And Brother Sababa, you can answer. What would you tell them to do based on what you just learned?
I'll take a zinc tablet.
What else?
Well, I have a regimen of vitamin D, C, and zinc. When I feel a little thing coming, and usually clear up in about a day or two.
Okay, so some people are answering and they're answering correctly. First of all, you're going to do an oral rinse with
Oh.
hydrogen peroxide or with Listerine to get rid of, remember the study that I showed? To get rid of the virus in this area here. You're going to swab a Q-tip swab, and you're going to dip it in hydrogen peroxide and rub it around your nostrils. Each tip around one nostril. You're going to do that 3 times a day for 5 days. That's number 1. Number 2, you're going to take zinc and you're going to take quercetin, and you should take probably another ionophore, which could be turmeric, it could be olive leaf extract, right? And let's just say it started to get a little bit more serious where you don't see your fever going away fully, you're getting sick, and it's maybe day 5, day 6. That's when you would want to start looking at ivermectin.
Mhm.
Because what you want to do is you want to make sure that you can resolve your issues before you have to go to the hospital. And the only reason why you're going to go to the hospital is because your oxygen is low. And because they have oxygen machines there, that's why you would go to the hospital. So what we want to do is we want to prevent you from getting your oxygen low.
I got
So-
an oxygen machine here.
Right. So that's what we want to prevent, because once you go into the hospital, you are in their hands and they're going to give you remdesivir, which we have seen does not work. I just showed you that it doesn't work. It actually causes damage, as you just saw from the studies I just showed. So that's the whole point of this. So the moment someone starts to present symptoms, gargle, rinse your nose with a Q-tip and hydrogen peroxide, gargle with hydrogen peroxide or Listerine or betadine. You're going to do it 3 times a day, 5 days. Quercetin, zinc, I would add another ionophore, which would be olive leaf extract or turmeric, or you can use Artemisia. You can get that, Artemisia annua, which is sweet wormwood. You can get that. You can get green tea extract. You see, so there are choices, but I would advise that if you're sick, you take 2 zinc ionophores plus zinc. And you also will take 30,000 IUs of vitamin D for 5 days. Okay? That's what I want to be clear about. Because if anything, if you didn't get anything out of this, know how to treat yourself, know how to treat your family and your friends if they start presenting themselves with these symptoms, because you do not want to end up in their hospitals.
Okay. All right, brother. Thanks a
All
lot.
right?
Really appreciate it.
Okay.
Family had a lot of people still stayed on, so contact us. Contact Brother Heru. You'll get your information. But study yourself. Take care.
All right.